ready.
All right.
Are we ready?
I'll wait for Steve. Okay. Call to order the Ojai Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. And let's stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Soft, please, would you lead us?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, okay. Just do roll call.
Commissioner Roddick.
Here.
Commissioner Ittner.
Here.
Vice Chair Rylander.
Here.
Commissioner Basor.
Here.
Commissioner Ford.
Here.
And our city council liaison this evening is our esteemed mayor, Severo Lara. He is here in lieu of Councilmember Blatz, who could not be here this evening. So thank you to Mayor Lara for filling in for that.
Thank you.
And we do have two absences, Commissioner Becker. Excuse me, we have one absence,
That's right.
Commissioner Becker, since we have the one vacancy.
So now it's time for public comments, and I don't have any speaker cards, but does anyone want to speak about anything that's not on the agenda? Nope, we're good? Okay. So we'll move forward with the police department report. Do you have anything? We don't have Sergeant.
Don't see the sergeant here, so we can go ahead and skip that, and if he
Oh, we're just
arrives, we
moving
can come
along.
back.
Okay, number 5, approval of minutes. So has everybody read our minutes from November 6th and December 4th? Approval of the minutes? Does anyone have anything? We're good?
Those are good.
Like to approve the minutes for November 6th and December 4th?
I'm going to I'll motion to approve the minutes of November 6th and the December 4th meetings.
I'll second.
Okay,
I'll call that.
so now we're on to,
So
oh, I'm sorry. Go
call
ahead.
for the vote on that
Call for the
motion,
vote.
please.
Aye.
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 You good? Okay. We're waiting for your aye. Or nay. Okay,
So that passed unanimously.
thank you. And now on to number 6, Public Works update. Thank you for joining us.
I didn't have anything in particular today beyond to mention that Libby Bowl, we pulled the shade cloth down out there. So the shade cloth, we were trying to pull it down every winter. Last year we didn't because we had the extra segment we were going to put in, so we left it up through the winter while we were designing that. And also there was a new roof placed on the multi-purpose building out at Libby Park, so that was just done a couple weeks ago. And that's the area where during the Ojai tennis tournament, the crews get up on top there and move around. So that was completed as well. And then there is some discussion right now, a little email back and forth. The Ojai tennis tournament would like to take, there used to be 2 aluminum bleacher sets up in the area, but when the bowl was built and that ADA ramp went down below the ramp, that pushed that out, and they had moved those down below. But I guess the tennis tournaments had a lot of complaints that court number 3, which is the one closest over to the stage area, does not have a good viewing area. There's not much bleacher, good viewing seating or anything else. So they've asked they want to get those bleachers back up to that area. So we're working with them right now for sure to bring them up for the Ojai tennis tournament and maybe to leave them up there for the rest of the year. It's quite an effort to move those around. I say aluminum, they're aluminum bench, seats on it, but the rest of it's all steel frame. It's really heavy. It takes about 10 guys to manhandle it and move it over to the a trailer and get it moved any place else we can use it. So I think that's the primary update.
Thank you very much.
You can stay. I think you get to stay up
Yeah, I
there,
think
Greg.
you
can.
You don't need to go anywhere.
We're going to move on to our discussion items tonight. We're going to talk about Libby Park Playground and shade structure, and Greg Grant will give us an update and presentation.
Okay. Good evening again, commissioners. And I think as an introduction to that, I was hoping to review the capital improvement plan quickly that we have for this upcoming year as well as future years. So, Allison, if you could kick that first slide in, appreciate it. And so I'll run over that. And then that's a nice preliminary. So I guess the opening slide here just shows the existing Libby playground, which is the major discussion. But I'll review the capital improvement program. So, and I think one of the advantages that the council has been working with the city manager over the past couple, 3 years now is to, as the economy improves, is to set aside additional revenues and try to use it to bring up all of the deferred maintenance that's been missed in the city over the years. A lot of it's paving, but certainly a lot of it's been parks. And so they're setting aside significant money to that effort, and you'll see these totals are pretty significant for capital improvements. And that, so that program seems to be working. It's pretty tight for staff, but I'm sure that sad story is being told all over the place, right? So we won't go on that. So what that means, so you can see fiscal year 13-14, so 2013-14, that's the year that just passed. And now we're in the middle of fiscal year 14-15, so this budget was already approved. And just want to review through, you can see up top, we had already talked about this before, that we had a fund, the AB 939 fund. It's one that created recycling mandates in the state, and it has a fund that has substantial money in it with the city. So this is not any, it's coming directly out of the AB 939 fund. So we have 50 plus 25. And I must admit it's been a back burner because we've been really looking at all of the existing trash can tables and everything else we have and trying to really look. There's just such a huge variety that cities have out there. And also issues we have with the trash cans that a lot of these lids, people pull them off to rifle through and pull out recycling. So maybe the homeless crowd and other people want to get the recyclables out, do it, and they leave the lids off cockeyed and things. We're trying to come up with, it didn't seem to be a really good manufacturer out there that has more of a hinged trash can that will, at least they can pull it up and do whatever they have to do and automatically shut down, or a couple of them are side opening, and a lot of them use keys and all this, but it seems like all the municipalities, the keys get jammed up and gummed up and they don't work. So we've got quite a few options we've been working out, but we haven't really considered it a priority. Nobody's really pushed us on it, but we had it in the budget. So I think we can pull that together this year and bring the options that we're proposing. We're a little bit debating on this. We had originally interpreted the AB 939 to be you have to use recycled lumber for the trash cans, but because the trash cans are trash and recycling, you can use metal or other products too, or even wood. We found some really nice hardwoods like this IPE that a lot of people are using for decks and things too. So those are really attractive looking cans. But when you go to the picnic tables or the benches, they have to be made out of recycled materials because that's not directly related to the recycling and trash effort. So anyways, so we went through a couple iterations figuring that out completely.
Can I ask you about that?
Sorry?
I'm just curious, will that roll over if you didn't use, you don't lose it per se
Mhm.
if you don't use it? Okay.
Absolutely.
So you
right.
still have time.
Yeah, we don't lose it.
Okay.
So, and so down next step there, yeah, the fountain. I have a little hard time with the vision here seeing that, but fountain rework and the benches. That's when we went through the fountain at Libby Park, so that's all complete. All the tile work and concrete, and the benches that were added to the corner over there, and removed a couple of the flower beds that people were sitting and standing in most of the time. And we do have, you know, that whole fountain area that's got the 2x4s all around the fountain. Mm-hmm. And it's somewhat of a trip hazard. We've been trying to work out and find a way. It's the way it was built. They put the 2x4s in as kind of permanent formwork. And it's, so we haven't quite nailed that down, how to try to get that 2x4s out and get them in. So one of those things too, it's not an extreme trip hazard, but we're trying to get them removed and freshen that up. So it's not a high priority, but it's in there. And then we've got the new playground. Of course, that's a big one. And that's the topic of discussion tonight. So that one is shown here with 106, I can't even read these.
160.
14, 15,
Yeah, and 60 next year, right? Yeah.
80, and 15, 60.
Okay. So we've got
240.
that total being 240. And we've got the Rotary West is also donating money, and Steve can touch on that again later. But because we have, as we'll discuss in the playgrounds, this integrated shade approach, they're looking at actually donating the money directly to this. So, and this also has a major assumption that the Ojai Civic Association is willing to help us with this project. The playground shade is that second line, so that's what the 60,000 is there. So you've got 240 plus 60 for 300 total. We're also finding that a lot of these products can be made with recycled lumber, and the advantage there is we can access the AB 39 fund and actually help supplement that. So we're in kind of a budget of a ballpark of $300,000 for the playground, which is terrific. Most of the playground people think that's substantial, and we should be able to do something nice. The triple sink for the multi-purpose building was done last year. It's in last year's budget, and this year we're looking at the Libby Bowl. All of the lights in there that are the overhead lights have been high maintenance fixtures, so we're looking at retrofitting those to LED where they're lower maintenance. The bulbs are real difficult to get to and expensive, and it's better to change them out. The roof is right there, and it was already done. All those other items under the Boyd Center, that's the retrofit we did last year at Boyd Center. And then the Sarasate Park being listed separately is the picnic area canopy for the picnic areas in the back. The CDBG money, I think, has not still been released. They keep talking about releasing it very soon. So we should be hearing very soon. Normally it's done in the fall, but they changed the program around this year. So as soon as that money is released, we should be able to get going on design and get it out. So at this rate, it'll come into the playground thing too. So it might, the playground will take priority at Libby, and this is right there with it. So the playground being the lead project, and this will be right behind it. So at this rate, have you heard any more about that, Steve, CDBG?
No, I haven't. In fact, that's a good question, because, normally one of the tricks with the CDBG is, they release it to you, and then you've got, usually through the end of, it's like the fiscal year or so to get it done.
The clock starts ticking. as
So
soon
the
as you
clock
have the
starts quicking pretty quickly.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean, but that doesn't mean we're not able in a lot of cases to go back and say, hey, can we carry this over to a future year? And they're usually pretty willing to do that if they know you've got a real project that's really
Right.
going forward, and that would be the case here. It would just be a matter of, can you get it in that time period or not?
I know we followed up on that just last month and hadn't released it yet, but we'll make sure we stay on it in case they should be emailing all of
Yeah,
us.
that
We
is
should know
slow.
about it.
It's usually, it had been like November. in
Yeah,
the past
November
when
previously.
you got when you got the funding authorization, so.
So that one's in there, and that's really, all the CDBG grant was awarded for that, and we're in good shape. And we also had the Ojai Civic Association has already committed to 50% donation on that. So that's terrific. So I think
Great.
all the money is pretty well set on that. Let's see. The trash enclosures, that's also at Sarasate near the new restroom. We were hoping at that same time we're going to try as an alternate to include an enclosure for the trash cans. And I think
You mean the
Sophocles.
big roll-off bins,
Ex-
not the
exactly.
Yes.
trash cans,
right.
just for clarification.
Yes,
Right.
thank you, yes.
In the parking lot, it'd be a couple different designs, but we mostly had a kind of a stucco finished roof building. And I think Sophocles would appreciate that
It would
because
be very nice.
I think they've had a little issue with people pulling up and dumping in the bin and so on. So when you lock them off like
And
that, it does lock.
aesthetically, it would be really nice not to see those when you drive over.
First
come
pull
in,
in,
yeah.
right.
And field number 1 has 2 really high old wood light poles, and we've got those, and those are in this year's budget. And we've got pretty good distance on that. We've been working with the can't think of the name of the light company that's kind of the ace light company. Musco, thanks, yeah.
Is it the same as the skate park lighting company?
These poles are extremely high. Those wood
Oh.
poles are, I think, 70 foot high. They're really big. So I was a little concerned. The woodpeckers have done some work on them. And they seem solid, but it's about time. So we'll replace them with metal poles. So they'll have a nice long life.
So that's just the poles?
That's poles
The
and
lights
lights.
won't,
Yep.
it's the lights as well?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And those lights will be under the new program.
Will they be LED lights?
I was just gonna-
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know they'll be dark sky compliant. So,
It certainly would seem
yeah.
that if we're going to go to all of the effort to put in new poles, that before you pull the trigger on that there should be research on LED.
There will be.
And maybe if you have to wait a little longer because the costs increase, it still seems like the return would be there to wait and do the project right versus putting in what will be obsolete lights.
I'll talk with, I know James
look
is
at
looking into that, so I'll mention that to James as well, but I'm sure he's thinking about it because to change those light bulbs out is quite
It's
a
a
project.
huge effort, yes. Takes a whole, you guys have to, do you have to rent a lift truck and all that just to do it?
We have a lift truck that'll
Have it?
reach that high,
Okay.
but nobody likes going that high. So it's
Yeah. And plus the cost savings.
Yeah, it should be a significant cost savings.
right.
And they heat up fast.
And the outdoor basketball court, I think, is part of, Steve is working on the master plan and integrating it with that. That's why it's split over a couple of years, whether it would happen that fast or not. So it's split somewhere between this fiscal year and next to get initiated. The tractor shed is just a shed in the back where the crew is, and was broken into recently and things, right? But it's just to clean it up. Right now, I think with the dirt floor, there's a lot of rodents that get in there, so we're going to concrete the floor and tighten it up a bit so we can keep materials over there and not worry about critters. And Quonset hut was a similar thing, put a better floor in. I think there was talk at one time of removing that Quonset hut,
Yep.
but it's kind of a nice storage area. And so if we clean it up a little bit and pour a new floor, it'll be a good storage area.
It's not a big expenditure to do it, which is good, and it makes
Mhm.
sense to me. But again, long-range planning at Libby, at Sarzodi, you could look at a lot of these and go, well,
Yeah.
don't rush.
I
Yeah.
was thinking
Because
about
if the
that.
planning is coming along and that's really where
True.
we're looking to go, I mean, honestly, I understand with the CDBG money and needing to
Yeah.
spend it and all of that, but there's really,
Bit
for
committed
me,
on that,
it begs
right.
the question of, if you're gonna do a full site plan and a full plan for that park, and you're about to put in basically structures.
Hardscape, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I
it's-
don't think we have a firm date on the Quonset hut. It's
No.
still kind of out there.
I think it was a good
So
idea
I
to
think
get
that's
it
a
in
good
there.
point.
I would just push off on those things that could come into question, because that
Yeah.
Quonset hut area is a pretty large area with the Quonset hut. It could be more than what it is, and I think we shouldn't limit ourselves by spending money that then we're gonna be, well, we just updated this, I don't wanna touch that.
Sure, no, point taken.
But if I could respond to that, I think that right at the present time, I did a walk around, because I am getting some complaints on some of the facilities and the way they're looking out there, so I was walking around tonight. And we do need to, there is some things that are out there now that need to be.
Right, dealt
Have
with.
some dealt
Yeah.
with, dealt with, that, it's a yearly annual maintenance program.
And that is a different thing than a major improvement.
Yeah.
For instance, the picnic area, you're plopping
But
down.
I think
the
he's
picnic
talking
area.
the
Right.
same thing, just putting some wood down and just making it a little bit more secure is what you're
Oh,
not
you're talking about the shed for the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
that
I'm
makes
talking
sense.
Yeah, the
about-
shed makes
That
sense.
absolutely
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Right now, the Quonset is just sitting there, isn't it?
No, it's,
No, it's structure.
They're
It's
actually-
used for storage.
Storage, for rec storage, or is it being used by?
Rec and pony.
Okay, so we do have people going in and out, okay, well.
And I would even, just because I've been in that shed many times to get things, I would say even moving that over near the Quonset hut to open up that available space. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
sort
we'll
of
look at
randomly
that in the
That's
plan.
that's
like,
part of that
in a
planning
weird
piece.
thing.
Right,
Yeah.
But I think I hear what you're saying, though, and I think it's a good point. Before
put
we
concrete
put a
in?
concrete floor in the
Yeah.
Quonset hut, we should at least take a look at the options, at least have the conversation. And you're right, it may be, no, we really need this, and it makes sense to
Right.
do it this time, or no, we can really hold off until we get the master
I don't
planning
really
done.
think you can put a concrete floor in the Quonset hut. It's up off the ground, so you're just talking about
The post
going in and replacing plywood down on the floor to make it.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
because you,
I've got to admit, I haven't looked at that structure that carefully. I just saw a dirt floor. It looks like you could basically pull it out, compact it. But I think a lot of it, we were talking about rehab in the place too. I mean, part
Right.
of it would be just a
Right.
fresh coat of paint on it. But I think it's also, and it's not shown here, but there is kind of the ABC priority type list. And that's not a high priority. It's just something the crew has mentioned. They have a lot of rodent issues with it, and
It
people
makes
talk
sense.
about, I mean, pretty well beat. And so, and even just secure it a little bit better than it was. I mean, it was vandalized and so on, right? So,
Make them safe, but
mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, so relatively minor items there too. And then in Daly Park, we were just talking about freshening up. It doesn't have a sign out there right now to put a City of Ojai sign with the Daly Park, a lot like we did at Sarzadi. I think most people appreciated that sign. And that was going back to AB 939 funding, was where that would come from. And also we could, there's some old tables in there. Some people seem attached to them, some old concrete tables, but some are pretty well beat also. So-
Yeah, they actually got identified at one of our
well, some of them are quite
risk
bad.
management evaluations, and I've looked at them.
Some of them are
They're-
partial benches.
They're a little,
and-
yeah, they're a little more to be desired there. So, I mean, they're a nice style, but I don't know how you repair that.
No,
So,
they're,
safety
they have
first.
had a long life.
Yep.
So hopefully, once we identify them for the other parks, we do everything at the same time. Same type of cans, same types of benches and everything else, yeah. And so I guess the totals down there, you can see it. There's future years. I didn't get into much. Those are less determined at this point. And so you can see last year was about 50,000. And then this year we're in right now, where it's at, is that 490, I think it says there? Oh, blind. 80. Yeah, 480,000. And then even for next year, 490. So about 500,000 each year. I think it is important, I didn't mention that one line at the bottom. You can see in future years, there is a money allocated. CDBG money accumulates at approximately $40,000 per year.
Wow.
And also from the capital fund, the primary fund, there's 50,000 being dedicated. So there's really $90,000 per year accumulating. And that comes up pretty quick when you think about, I know there was some discussion about why we're working on Libby Park playground. What about Sarzati? That's the more of a neighborhood park. And we talked about that in the facilities committee, and that's it was mostly related to Rotary Club pushing through and with a shade cloth that got everybody moving on it. But you can imagine just in 3 years, you'd have $270,000 of city money alone with no match. If Ojai Civic Association was willing to support the project, that can significantly drop up towards 50%. I mean, they donated 50 on the
I got a
shade
quick
structure.
question. I noticed that this is, I'm not, with the one that, the agenda that was sent out, it's not showing these figures.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. So I think
Cleaned up.
Greg's got a little more revised table. Because I took this out of the approved budget. So
It is, yeah.
Ours has more detail, I think.
I think the one that we have combined shows the separation between the Fund 31 and the other fund sources.
Okay.
But I noticed that the total's a little bit different there.
Is
So
the total different? Okay.
I didn't get a chance to figure that out. Because on here, we've got 161.5 for the picnic area.
How about the grand totals? I'd probably,
The grand total's the same.
is it
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this just says it's
Isn't it?
more broken down.
Well,
I
it
came
has
up
the
with
126 and 354. So
Oh, yeah, I got
that's
four, it's 480.
It's the same.
Yeah,
I
okay.
did it
all
480,
right.
okay.
My math was
But
bad
just
then.
in separate different.
Yeah.
We have a more detailed spread that breaks out what's city Fund 31 and
Right,
what's
that's
grant
right.
and other donations.
And that's what we're looking at.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Now,
sorry for the
Can I
confusion.
ask a quick question? You may not have the answer, and that's okay. The restroom and picnic area, what's the CDBG portion? If you don't have it, that's okay.
The restroom and picnic area, oh, you're, is
What's-
that at Sarzati?
Yeah, what portion is that is CDBG money? Because you referenced that Civic Association, I know has already okayed money for that.
Right, and you're talking about the picnic area and canopy and pad?
Yes.
Okay, right, that one is, it's got, let's see, CDBG money in there, and it's got city money, and it's got AB 939 money. So it's,
And Civic Association.
But it doesn't have Fund 31, does it? It doesn't show any Fund 31 on ours. It shows just other funds.
well, I think other fund is considered the city's AB 939 fund.
That's correct,
Okay,
right.
so it's, so
Yeah,
that's a
that-
combination, I'll ask later, I don't need the details
No,
now,
it's
but
all
I'm
right.
curious about what the breakdown is of CDBG, AB 39, and Civic Association.
Yeah,
on
that,
project.
I'd like to see
Yeah.
a more breakout, yeah.
Yeah, we can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
So I also wanted to note, in addition to the, $90,000 a year that's projected to be put into the capital improvement for recreation, we also have any overage from that we have from our department.
Right.
Beyond the subsidy that we can also put into that as well. So if we're able to continue performing well on that, we'll be able to throw that in there as well.
Excellent.
It's awesome.
But,
I should
really
mention
bank
too that traditionally the city's coordinated with HELP and periodically HELP takes some of that money
Part
like they
of the
do service.
CDBG.
The CDBG, right, right.
Yes.
So they've had an issue over there
Not
with,
your money.
in the,
Clarify, that's right.
and what do we even call the facility next door? It's called the.
Little House?
The Little House, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Little House next door, they had some issues with the restrooms being ADA compliant and with an issue in the kitchen. So this year's money was allocated to them for their project. So that's, so it's not an existing project, but next year it goes back to the city for a few years.
So I kind of have a suggestion at this point. We had been promising for a while to get this in front of the Park and Rec Commission, and we figured it made sense, since Greg was going to be here tonight, and it also made sense to kind of give as a lead-in to talk about the playground and whatnot. But I think the other part of it is, we still want to have the conversation with the commission about how you'd like to advise on the priorities for future years. And since we've already got really the focus on the discussion on the playground, my recommendation would be to come back at the February meeting, and we can focus on that discussion a little bit more, and we can take a look at how this is laid out in future years. And again, it's your opportunity to kind of put your stamp on it in terms of if you want it, how you would like it to see. and that it would include, potentially other projects or anything else like that. So we can put that on the February agenda, let you guys discuss that and work on that, and then we'll bring that forward to the council whenever we have the next discussion on the budget and the CIP. And of course, we'll have several opportunities to do that as we start moving forward in the budget process, which, believe it or not, will be here before we know it. So.
In the more immediate years we're in now, it seems like we've been in this recovery mode, trying to catch up with deferred maintenance. And so now it seems like we've kind of gone through the Boyd Center, and we're working on the parks and the restrooms, and so and getting these playgrounds updated. So at least we can start kind of maybe entering a little more of a dreaming phase for the future.
And this is a little off topic, but, and I'll admit, I have a little bit of a personal, professional bias on this. Is there any thoughts or plans about trying to remodel or redo the lower restrooms at Libby?
I just wrote a note on my paper about that.
I've heard that before, so.
Really, we were never able to get into full, there's some discussions I know are bouncing around with Ojai Music Festival that they really want to see a bigger restroom up top, that they spend all this money. And that was, we were all talked about internally about how often would that be used. The music festival and also Libby Wolf Foundation would appreciate that for their events, and how often that really be used. So the money that was there for remodeling the restrooms was initially thought, why don't we do a remodel on both of them? And then there was some thought, well, the upper restroom is just used so much more heavily, let's focus on that one. So I think that really that restroom remodel is just, it doesn't really say upper or lower. It just says remodeled restrooms for $120,000. And certainly if we could deal with matches and so on, that could be increased. So it's pretty wide open, from simple things like just retile, repaint, to really.
Add doors.
That would probably be at the top of the list, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a hard one to ignore and say that it's okay.
Those are also the most heavily vandalized, I should say, restrooms too, so it's a bit tricky there about how we treat them. It's not a deluxe, it's not our plaza restroom, but it is.
I understand, but I agree with Steve. It's.
Yeah. The new restaurants at Sorzati, both of them are relatively new, holding up.
I understand that what we have doesn't serve, and having gone to events, and we do need an upper restroom, and it isn't to the capacity that you need for large events, without a doubt. But the lower one, maybe it's not a full remodel, maybe it's not a new building. Maybe it is a cheaper, more attainable project to do a little sooner because it's not as grandiose in scale. But there's a lot of daily use at lower. So you're talking about the difference between large-scale events needs and everyday user needs. And for me, we need to be really careful how we prioritize those two and how we pay attention to them, because those courts are used constantly with all of the kids there and the adults and the tennis classes. This is a busy area. So I think that both are very important, and I don't want to see the lower ones kind of get pushed away because they're not part of the big event scenario. I think we need to be really careful that we keep them there because our everyday users use that, and we need to make sure that we're being sensitive to that, because they really are not acceptable at this time. And I don't think you can go out there and fix them tomorrow, but I think as the discussions go for the CIP, they need to be on there.
Well, I appreciate you flagging that.
Adding volume to that area, if the bike
Right.
Oh, yeah.
track goes in there too, that's a daily use. The music festival is great, but it's not the only people that use the stuff. We need to address the lower. You're gonna, I don't know, double the volume down there if you get those kids on bikes.
Well, I think part of the reason that we sold that people are considering that site is for the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we are talking about is bathrooms right now. Go take a look at them. They are. It's not a comfortable scenario. And we've actually improved Sorzati, thank goodness, because Sorzati had its own really subpar bathroom too. We've elevated that, and it has a door.
I appreciate you flagging that, because it is true. We mostly hear about the upper restroom at Libby and the other restrooms.
Well, you hear from
so we're kind of more
organizations.
focused on it. So it's good for us to get down and take a good look. I got to admit, I sometimes
Well, and it's the
not get down
difference
there
between
much.
large organizations and individuals. And I think that if you go observe the use there, it's not a low-use area.
Okay, I appreciate that. We'll make, and really it is open for that, and I think with a lot of flexibility, with
Yeah.
hopeful, if Ojai Civic is willing to put money in, I think there's a lot of money there for rehabs, and we haven't gotten into the real cost of it. I know restrooms always cost a fortune.
More than you think they should.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's.
just to follow up on her statements, it is used daily. You're talking during Monday through Friday, probably 75 to 85 people a day down at those tennis courts, just in our youth and
'Cause they're such
adult
successful
tennis programs.
I don't think we see that
Daily.
at Libby Bowl, do we?
Down in those.
Maybe visitors.
Get a counter on that.
Maybe on concert.
All day.
Okay, appreciate that. We'll definitely keep an eye out for that. And then, at least the flexibility is there. We have a lot of room on it.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk some more about that going forward.
I'm sure we will.
I gotta go see it.
No, Greg, we don't have a counter. We have actual people enrolled in those programs that they just use the lower tennis courts. It's not a counter, it is a counter.
You mean you already have
We have
data, is
people-
what you're
We
saying.
have data, people
job.
enrolled. in
Yeah,
those
I was
programs.
thinking maybe a counter on the
Don't do a
flusher. We could
counter.
actually keep
We don't
track
do
of
a
the data,
counter.
you know?
People going in and out of the restrooms, we're just assuming occasionally people
Yeah.
have to use them.
I think some of the other crowd, we'll just say up is in the upper Libby, and that's where the abuse comes from, maybe, so. If we're done with any other questions on capital improvement program, or else
I
I'll,
think tabling it to February is great. I think everything else we can talk about then.
okay, terrific. And I'll go ahead to the playgrounds then.
Exciting.
And I think that Steve and I were just talking about this to make sure it's clear, because there's a bigger concept here with the playgrounds. And the Facilities Committee has met and talked about these over the past year, and we really zeroed in on the last meeting we had. And there's one concept is calling it modular prefabricated concepts or playgrounds. And that is more of what we see typically everywhere. They're prefabricated playgrounds, and there's quite a few manufacturers out there, I would guess. And we've contacted 6, and I think we landed up with 5 initial proposals from them we'll take a look at here. And so those are what we already have at Libby and at Sarzati, and you see typically around down at the beach and so on. And there's a lot of exciting stuff going on with there. I think that we've talked about a lot of these more dynamic systems where they have ropes that you get onto and nets and all that kind of thing. And they've got,
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
Just to set the scene and clarify just a
Yeah,
little.
I was-
We actually don't have proposals. What we
Right.
have is we contacted, you contacted different vendors who have these modular prefabricated that you're going to introduce, and then another path that has a slightly different
Right.
process. But we haven't had any requests for proposals. Nothing has gone forward. Nothing you're seeing
Right.
here tonight is specific to Libby, as in this is a design. This was just a way for you and particularly for our committee to understand what's out there in the world of playgrounds for today.
Yeah,
So
and
I-
thank you. And I was actually gonna help frame it a little bit too. And let me elaborate on that a little bit. We just want to make it clear because, you know, when you start looking at this, and it's really easy to get very excited with this stuff. And, you know, I think a lot of you, you know, think similar to maybe, you know, Greg, you know, it's almost like, well, let's just pick that one and let's just go because it's you know, it's such a, you know, it's going to be such an improvement over, I mean, not that what we have is bad, but, you know, there really are some exciting proposals out there. But we're at the point right now where we want to get input, particularly from the commission, on, you know, how we're going to do the public outreach is one of the questions there, because there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some of these vendors, it's a big part of their program, and in other places it might be, you know, really it's going to be on us to do. Then the other kind of question that's going to come up here is, do we look to go the route of, you know, the traditional build where you know, hire, the contractor comes in and they build it and they turn it over to you, or do we go this community build route where you actually have the contractor work with volunteers in the community, both skilled and unskilled, to come in and actually help assemble the project and save some money? Sorry, I'm stealing some of your thunder here, Greg, I realize that. Greg's done the bulk of the work on this, I just want to make that real clear. You know, Greg is really, he's been doing all the heavy lifting on this, but I'm just want to kind of set the table here a little bit. And then we'll talk a little bit about the project budget and the timeline. I think we've hit a lot of that already in the capital improvement plan. And then we'll need to talk a little bit about, you know, just exactly what the process will be for the RFP. And then, you know, part of that will be, I think, hopefully identifying what the community and the Parks Commission would like to see in terms of playground components. And then, you know, how we sort that all out in the RFP process will be part of what we're trying to figure out. So we're looking for some input tonight on kind of how the direction that we go on this, your thoughts on community build versus the traditional build, how you think it might be good to tackle the public outreach, and some of your input on, you know, we do want to get your input on kind of what you'd like to see out there, because that, does help us, to build where we're going to go with this thing. But obviously, at this point, we're not going to be able to pick particular components, and a lot of that's going to depend with, who applies and what kind of vendors we get in terms of responses. So I hope that helps.
I think that's it. Thank you. No, just kidding. No, that's fine. And I think, I think that's the idea here is to, and I did contact, like I'm saying, about 6 different modular prefabricated, all these big companies. The one over at Sarzati, I think, is Game Time, and that's a big manufacturer. And then the one, there's these big companies, they're all nationwide, and they get all over. And there's a few that are a bit more custom, but they're still cranking these things out, and some are made in the U.S., some are made overseas, and so on. So that's what all of these are, and I contacted them, and these guys, they're used to, they have software programs, and they plug in all their stuff in your site, and they can give a catalog, and then most of them are interested in, let me go take a look at your site. So they sketch out the site, and that's what we'll have here is a few mock-ups of what it could look like. And then it's, that other option is really all about, they call it a community design build, and that's a whole nother concept. And that's really working with a consultant that comes in, and they are experts at this. They go out and get all the, it's like working with a community development planning group or somebody. They go out and contact the schools, and they get all kinds of input and really work with the community to make it custom. And they can use modular components, and there's a big portion of it that's custom built. And the great news is we'd already contacted the Lions Club of Ojai Valley, and they're very supportive of it, of this project, and they want to take this on as their project if we went with a community design build approach. So if we go there, it's key to be able to have a group that has skilled craftsmen that can take the lead on that, and that's terrific they have that, because then we'll get into that a bit in the other ones. We have to have lead groups that are taking all this, because they just hammer it out in a couple of weeks and get this entire playground built. Now, I should mention these modular prefabricated people are also on to that, how popular that approach is. So they're saying some are not willing to do it, but some are willing to have a community build with their prefabricated stuff, and it's a significant savings. It was $100,000 savings for one of the really nicer initial setups here. So it seems what we're talking about here is to review all the modular prefabricated and to review the community design build consultant approach. And if the commission discusses and wants to move forward with that, one option is to get more information, but if the commission feels like they really want to go in one direction, and I think the facility committee has discussed it at length and has an opinion on that I'm sure they'll express at the end here, but if they want to move forward, we can go ahead and finalize that with the council and formally request proposals at either side, either with the modular prefabricated or the consult design build approach. I don't believe there's that many consultants out there that do this work, but there's one that's all over the U.S. that specializes in it, and there might be a few other. So we really go out and formally do that, and we could move forward and move on the process. We could actually move forward if we wanted to after tonight's decision. So on that, I'll move forward here. So that's existing, and this playground is roughly, we weren't able to dig up the documents when it was built, but it appears to be over 20 years old at this time. So it is about time. This is great. I think that of the various vendors that I contacted, this outfit, Playcraft Systems, and Pacific Play is, they seem to all have regional reps, is down out of Orange County. And they were really gung-ho to take this and really get into it. So you can see where they actually have the Libby pillars right there. Most of people didn't even get into that much. But they've got that shade structure on the right, a large poled shade structure, kind of what was initially being talked about with the rotary. And they've got some pretty good sized ones on the left. There's actually 2 of them. They're about 15-foot square that are over picnic table areas. And then you can see that structure in the middle, it kind of touched reminiscent of the Seoul Park, that giant rocket and everything there. So it's really, that's 3 stories plus high with a really long tube that you can even see a window there to help light up the tube. It's so long. And then there's 3 slides off the back, and there's a lot going on there. A little rock climbing wall off to the left. And that area you can kind of see up in the very front is the 2 to 5 area. And then the area, all the rest of it is 5 to 12. I think I've got that right. And you can see a swing set in the back as well. So these guys, I mean, this is kind of that modular prefabricated, but it's very interesting. There's some great ideas out there. And it's a little hard to see at this level, and I guess we're in the age where we've lost our laser pointers a bit, but off there's a bunch of that rope network thing that, Sage, I know, is really pointing out that to try to get some of that new stuff in there is great, where it's more interactive, more dynamic and all that. So they have a large section of it in. So, yeah, it's kind of hidden in the, let me see if the next picture, it sort of gets buried in there, because these ropes are so thin you don't see them in these kind of views, but there's quite a bit of it in there.
I can point to it.
Yeah, if you want to.
We're talking about this area.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of this kind of, it's a cable center with a rope exterior, and it's pretty tough stuff. I think they've really got it down where it's UV protected, and they have a good life. You kind of hear up towards 10 years life on those. Some places like down to Ventura Beach, I know the sand is just always working it. It's like rubbing it with sandpaper all the time, and it tears it up pretty quick. It shouldn't be the case here. So this is I think of all of the modular prefab initial concepts that they offered out, and really these things, like if we did go with this approach, we'd do a formal RFP and we'd really see these people hit it hard and give it their best. And it seems like this person was just gung-ho enough, like I'm saying, they really got up front and went at it. So anyways, it gives you a rough idea of what we're talking about there.
Greg, a quick comment or / kind of question. I just, for the public and the commission and everything, I know on that particular concept, I know these are all concepts at this point, and it was what the vendor provided us. But in terms of our concept for the shade at the playground, is the concept to have it over individual components like that, or to try to have one large sail that more or less covers the entire area, or do we not really know that yet?
And this particular vendor integrated both. I mean, the components in the playground barely need to have a shade. They've got it integrated in there, and they call that the integrated shade, and a lot of manufacturers have gone more to this.
The only exception I would have to that, and I'm not trying to pick this apart, I know it's not the time, like for example, on that one, the slide, you would say would be a particular concern on a hot day.
Right.
And I know that's kind of one of the top things on the list.
I haven't,
in terms of sun
and
exposure.
I guess in a way, they seem to say, for instance, that tower, you're shaded each layer as you go up, but it doesn't have a large overhang up top, so certainly sun is coming in the afternoon hours. And then slide, it is a hot surface. I know none of them were interested in doing stainless steel slides on this in the temperatures we get up here.
Right.
And that covered one would, it's a tube, so that's somewhat shaded. I guess the slide, you're moving down it fast, but it's something we could work with.
Sure.
If we went with this approach, we would tend to get proposals and work with them. We might go through even a cycle or 3 or 4 and talk about those kind of features if somebody can customize it. And that's where you zero in. You might say, I really like these 3 manufacturers, and these guys really take care of whatever we're asking for. Or maybe we do want a shade structure just over the slides. So it's really a very rough concept of what can be done.
Of course. And then the other thing, just kind of a interesting thing, it's, for all of us who grew up on playgrounds and, it's really evolving in terms of the design and everything. One of the things that you'll notice, and you'll see it in some of these, all the playgrounds come in basically sets, or the swings come in sets of 2 now. There's no middle swing for that kid to get clobbered trying to get past the other people. But, so it's a lot of little design things that you don't necessarily see, and they're all designed to enhance the safety and the playability as well. So,
and yeah, I mean, and the old the rotary shade, that one on the right hand side, the yellow shade, is a huge shade, and it's got quite a few picnic tables in it. So it's kind of got both the integrated shades and the other ones. So I think this gives you an idea of what could be done for that amount of money. And keeping in mind, this approached $300,000, but this manufacturer is very interested in a design build. They understand that competition, and that's about $100,000 deduct if it's a design build. If you use the local community to build their components.
The community build.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the lifetime of that equipment?
Our stuff is pretty good, really, at 20 years. So, I mean, at 20 years, I think you're seeing pretty substantial deterioration, but I think it'll last 20 to 25. And you can always replace components. Like even at Libby right now, we've got a slide that's got damage at the bottom, and that we have somewhat cab-job, realizing this is coming up soon enough. And that slide could have been replaced. I think it was almost $5,000 for the slide. So we were reluctant to invest that right now. So, okay, I'll and these were schematics they showed, and it kind of gets a feel for the layout, that it's utilizing most of the ground that we have there. There was some talk, you can see where the shade structure is up on the top, that's the area where there was a tree and it's all wood chips up there now. We could expand out to that area. So I think right now we're in the 7,500, 8,000 square feet for the existing playground limits. And these guys were very progressive. They looked at it and said, hey, that curb that goes through the middle is an ADA issue. You've got to have a ramp and so on through there. And he said, get rid of it. What do you need it for? Level it out and maybe replace some of the curb. And so he was forward thinking, and he's got that shade over that area to utilize it up top. But that could be an area to expand out features as well. And so game time, this is Great Western Park and Playground, and this representative's out of Thousand Oaks, which is handy. A lot of people in Ventura County use game time. And so this approach is, it doesn't have the intensity of the other one, but you can kind of see anyways the general layout. They're using more of the stretch fabric shade, which covers more of the playground like Steve was talking about. So I think that each one of these people have certain benefits, and they have the little mini integrated shades as well. This wasn't quite as extensive. Some of the iterations, they weren't really willing to kind of keep going at and plugging in for the full budget. And I think initially we talked 250 and people would come in very low. And I said you could put more features in, and they wanted to see where we were going with the process first. And that's their schematic, and you can see it looks a little light. And landscape structures, let me just make sure I had these names right. Yeah. Great Western. So Great Western is game time. They're the ones that did Sarzati Park. And Rec West is the one out of Thousand Oaks. And they've got a lot of, they've came into this whole system they call EVOS. And it's too bad that it's not something we could zoom in and see a little bit better here. It's kind of a static approach we're looking at here. But there is a lot of neat features there. It looks very modern. Whether or not that fits in with the feel of Libby Park and with the historic buildings and so on around it, is questionable. But it's got a lot of great stuff, and this is very expensive, all this type of equipment. So that is approaching $300,000, that kind of equipment right there. And they were more reluctant, but realizing if that's the competition, they might have to be open to the volunteer build approach. And
But they don't have a process in place to do that at this point.
They were discussing it, but they were a little more reluctant. They were more concerned about assuring it was built properly and that it met their specs and they could guarantee it, warranty it properly. So that is this company. There's another one by the same company. So they've got that kind of rocket, and they can do those multi-level. And so you can kind of see there's kind of this high-tech EVOS, I think it was called. This thing's kind of slow responding. EVOS here, and a little different here, but same company. So there is some neat materials out there and new features. Now this is a company called Miracle, and as I go through these, I think the intensity of effort that the company's put into it, coming up, taking a look, and talking about it with us decreases. So you kind of see a little bit less features on it. So this was from Miracle Playground Products, and I guess they dealt with the rec director years ago and kind of proposed this kind of thing, and they hadn't changed the type of materials they had that much. And that kind of shows a layout of what it would look like on the site. So that's a little bit strange because it's not pointing north, it's pointing up to the east, but you can see the fountain. And you can see how big that area is. It's a nice shot to show where the old big oak was, how much that wood chip area could be expanded. And Playworld Systems, Dave Bang, this is a pretty big outfit down, I think they're in Orange County area. And kind of interesting, they've been incorporating all these wood-like plastic features in there. So a lot of these plastics are recycled, like I'm saying, so we can kick in AB 939 money, maybe expand and put more money into it. So that was kind of the end of the modular prefabricated systems. And I'll run through. Thank you, Allison. That was pretty fast. Let me sit down. So the second one is a community design build with a consultant. And so how this one really evolved also is that my kids always loved up in Santa Barbara, that Alameda Playground has got that huge kids' world. And they always, so I always was interested, where the heck do they come up with this stuff? And even down in Ventura at Blanche Reynolds, they have a playground down there. So those are kind of the two extremes where Santa Barbara put a lot of money into it, and it was a community build up there. So that even though that's fairly fancy, it was all built by the community. And down at Blanche Reynolds, I think what happened there, I'm not sure, I wasn't able to contact the people who pulled it together, is the community pulled the money together and they built it. So I think there was a lot less money spent down there, but it was all community build. And just 2 years ago, I noticed on the internet they did a refurbishment of it. Whereas Santa Barbara is a public park and the city maintains it every year. The one down at Blanche Reynolds is on school property, I think, and it gets minimal maintenance because of the tight budget. And it was looking pretty bad a few years ago, but I understand they just went through and repainted it. It looks a lot better. But this Leathers Associates, so what I'm doing, this is obviously not my presentation, but to kind of go through the process, the facilities committee, the representative was on the phone from the East Coast and went through a PowerPoint, and I'm basically running through it in the same way, or a similar way. So there's a shot in the background. You can see they used to be all wood. The one up Santa Barbara is all wood. The one down at the Blanche Reynolds is all wood. They've gone to all recycled wood, which has a lot longer life to it, and it gets rid of some of the issues they have with maintenance. But the idea is that the community comes in, and even a facility like that, they do a lot of coordination up front, pulling all the volunteers together and have everybody dialed in, knowing who's going to work on what, and when they've got enough leaders for different components. And they hit it hard, and in a couple of weeks, they build these kind of facilities. And they've got leaders out there that have done this, and they know where the issues and problems are. And so materials, like I'm saying, it's custom built with recycled plastic. It meets all the standards, the ASTM and National Playground Safety Institute requirements. And they're thinking about ease of maintenance. And one of their big things is they try to integrate features of your community when they do all this outreach, to try to build features in, whether they're, I don't know if it'd be our bell tower or a piece of the Topa Topa Mountain or a Chumash canoe or whatever it'd be, I'm not sure. And some playgrounds, that was not meant to be derogatory anyway. So, but some playgrounds really focus on accessibility, and they use this poured-in-place rubber. So they've got, and it seems like quite a few they've done, they've really got focused. But you can see on this one, I don't know if you want to help me out, Sophocles, on that one. But you know, that multi-layer, that's really, this thing is 3 or 4 stories high. This is one they just built. Yeah. And but this is 2 layers up, 3 layers, 4 layers.
Well,
Yeah.
Would you want me to walk?
And see the ship right there and so on, you know. So I think that one she was talking about, I think it was in St. Charles, Louisiana, I think it was, you know.
Sounds right.
And that's but it's pretty amazing. It's huge structure, and they had all these volunteers hit it, and the community was very proud of designing this all together and pulling it together. And even you can kind of see the features here. I mean, they do some pretty fancy building, you know, with using different colored plastic materials. And, you know, some of these things are real tires. Like, I think on this one they were saying, I forget where it was, John Deere donated some component, or somebody donated tires and so on. But you can kind of see up there where there's, you know, that some of these things get into painting. And they do point out, if you want to get fancy. Yeah, what's that?
They do a lot of decals.
Decals.
Some design decals, so even if you can't paint it, they will provide you with the decals to put on there, she was saying.
And I should let Sage and Sunday and Robert kick in, because this is, they were at the facilities committee where they heard all this. So, so on design, what their point is that they go out and they do design days. They go out and communicate with all the kids at the school. So they kind of go K through 8, I think it was.
They do K through 6.
K through 6.
K through 5 most places, but in Ojai would be a K through 6.
Okay.
That's what we have.
And they actually roll through and spend about 20 minutes with each classroom, and you can kind of see them getting input and writing all this
Can I
stuff.
interject for just a second?
Uh-huh.
Do you mind?
Sure.
Okay. They're part of what you're hiring when you hire this firm is they facilitate a process. You're hiring their expertise in the engagement of the public outreach, all of these things, which then, in contrast to the other companies that we're looking at, you are hiring them to buy their materials. That you get the design when you buy the materials, but it's kind of lumped together as, we're going to buy your components and you'll help us design it, and then you'll hire someone to put it in that's typically affiliated with that company. When you're working with this group, you are basically, what they're providing you is their expertise and their ability to facilitate a process as well. Because when they come to do this, this is what I remember her talking about, before they even get here for the design day, where they are in town overnight, it's like a 2-day event for them. They've already done research on your town, historical research. They take anything you give them about your town, because every playground they do is specifically designed to that locality. So, they would ask us to provide, anyone who would like to provide history, and they'd probably take the books, and they do the research. So before they even get here for design day, they've already done some pretty thorough research on the town from the information you give. So they come to design day, and they go to the kids, and at the school, they go and they meet with every classroom, and they spend about 20 minutes with every classroom, and they have it's like a mini design charrette, and they help these kids walk through. And even before they get there, if the school is amenable, they send the materials ahead of time so the teachers can explain what's going to happen and give them a piece of paper, design the playground of your dreams, and they kind of give them a little scenario. So some kids will come and show up there that day with a design, and then they will meet and facilitate these groups with each. And I think it sounds like there's more than one person just comes from their team, depending on the size. And then they take all of that away, and they're done by, I think she said, 11 o'clock or 12 that day. They've done all of the little mini charrettes with the school, and then they go away and take the information they've already gathered before they get here and everything they get from those kids and come up with a design to present that night. And then that night they bring the community in and they present some elements and a conceptual design, and then have those community members come and participate in, what do you think about this, and get more information. And then after they're done with that, they take that all back, and that's the conceptual design they're going to work off of based on what they've presented. And then they come up with a design. And by come up with a design, we don't mean just which pieces they're going to pull from their, what they make, because they don't make any of these things. They don't actually produce any playground equipment. What they're going to do is come up with a design that they can then facilitate the building of, which is made of raw materials in the sense that the recycled lumber, all of these different things. And then the other thing they put in there is, for instance, the cargo net, the spider web net on the right-hand side. Right. They don't build that. They buy that from a company. And they buy, depending on what you're looking for, from all these different companies that all the modular, they buy from all those different companies. And so then if those are things that the community knows they want, they integrate that into the design based on the feedback they get from the community. So they really want a spiderweb net here. They integrate that into their design. But it isn't something they build or manufacture. They source it from somewhere else.
And they've researched it very well. They were
Right.
saying they know that this one manufacturer they really prefer for that, and for the swings they recommend that. And even these tubes for slides and all these different components, which are prefabricated components. But all this is all custom built, all that.
So then what they do, is they prepare the plan on how to do that. So the next step is you've got a plan, you know what you want. They then help you know how to organize your volunteers to do it. And they have someone here to facilitate that process, to help you organize the teams, do the outreach, guide you in your communication, because they've done this for I don't know how many years, long time. And so they have
something
an
like
absolute
35 years,
process
yeah.
I thought
in
it was
place.
35 years.
Yeah.
A process in place that the community here would plug into, and that people would understand their roles, and even down to they have a tool check-in, because people are bringing tools to use there. So they have a tool check-in, and they have a whole procedure on how you check all the tools before they're allowed on the job site. So it's they've got this down to a science. And
That's all the firm does. That's all they specialize in.
but that's what they do. They don't.
And even kids can participate.
Right,
in
certain ages, they
areas.
have jobs
Yep.
for different ages,
I
and
think it
how
was-
they'll,
9 and up was able to.
With the parent?
With the parent.
Parents, something like
participate.
that, yeah.
You had to be 12 to
Yeah.
use a table saw, wasn't
18
that?
and-
Yeah.
I think
think
you had to be
below that,
18.
though,
18 and older for power tools.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. But I think the process, their goals are that it is absolutely unique to your community and reflects the values and those things that are special within your community, and that each design is unique. Beyond that, I think they flex to what it is that people want in your budget. But so you're hiring, I guess the big difference is you're hiring a consultant who does a very specialized process and facilitates it for you. And then they have, when you actually are doing your build, and I don't remember all the details of this, but they have people here helping manage it. It's not like they throw you out there and go, good luck, here are your tools. There's someone here overseeing all of that and having already trained the people that need to be trained to do
Well,
it.
I think the other option was too, is they were going to tell us what we needed in advance, what kind of equipment and
Right.
everything we needed, so we
All
could.
part of the process.
So we could reach out to the different contractors in the valley and say, hey, do you have, something to drill a hole here, or can you?
Well, and
help
it
us
sounds
here?
like you can get materials donated, the same thing, because they're gonna give you a materials list. This is what you're gonna need to make this design. And then, so
It's more, I think with this one, what we looked at, and what I liked about it was that the fact that the community is the one that's designing it. It's theirs. They've bought into it. They're there. They're putting it up for themselves. What a great thing to have. And with the Lions Club coming in, that's a great group of people coming in to assist us with that. But I also think that there's a possibility that we could get out there and do a little fundraising to maybe get some other things.
it's part of their process. They even give you
Exactly.
ways, it's built into this process. They will help give you the tools to do that as well. They don't do it for you, but they provide you with materials that will help you get your fundraising going.
I seem to say even like Lowe's typically is willing to
Lowe's will
donate
bring- yeah, the
materials,
truck
and
out.
typically your local yards, hopefully we'd maybe find Ojai Lumber is willing to chip in, and certain contractors up here, I mentioned McGilvery or some other contractor like that who's substantial, they might be willing to really kick in with their crews too. So they really say that the community can really kind of steamroll, and everybody gets into the process and is very proud of it. It's not something that's just built and placed over here.
And
The
they
whole
also,
community gets
they
behind
also
it.
realize too, different projects have very different timelines for them, even with the people they work with. I think ours would hopefully be a faster timeline because we have more in place, but some communities, they start with this and then it takes them a long time before they get to the point where they're ready to go because they don't have funding in place and they haven't done their fundraising. So they're very flexible on their process.
Well, I'll run through the rest of their slides.
Sorry, yes.
I think that's great because, I would have just hammered through their slides here, and I think but it gives a feel for it. That was the outreach at the
There's the- yeah.
schools and all the kids doing their dream drawings. And then I think they were talking about their people they send here. They just go all day through this, and they're just fully immersed in it, and they start sketching out things with the community at nighttime and really pulling it off. And after community outreach meetings are done, they crank out these drawings to really try to get these things nailed down. And then this is after there's agreement and the communities all agreed on it, they come up, of course, with construction plan views, and they come up with sample 3D renderings.
Which they do all by hand and they're hand colored, which I thought was very
Right,
interesting today's
right.
day and age. That's
Because that's not what the other ones are
unusual.
doing. So they kind of talk about the design process, the gathering ideas from the kids, and schematics, and the project management. I mean, they do have pros that are field pros. They tend to be a lot of the same people guide the whole project through, so they understand exactly what was intended and follow through. And then, so it says construction, yeah, okay. So, and it can incorporate art. Some communities want to have special art features and so on. Some are hand painted on. Some, the one in the bottom right was a community that wanted to do mosaic tile work, and they did all that. And so they had some art groups that really got into that and were pushing that part of it. Some were just painted on. Some were the decals, like Sage is saying. And here's some local themes for different communities, different things they had. And they've got these all over the country. I remember looking on the internet intensely for municipal playgrounds and really trying to find who makes these. And I got to admit, every single time I found different cities, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and I'd talk to bigger municipalities and say, hey, who do you guys use? Well, we always RFP the modular type, but there's one company, it's called Leathers Associates. So I got to admit, I'm not sure how many other design firms are out there. We haven't found any, but I've found calling around the East Coast and the West Coast, it's always Leathers Associates. I was really surprised, here locally, Santa Barbara and everybody. So you can see how these really do get pretty massive, but they're all carefully built with, recycled lumber. And I think in general, when you think of recycled lumber for decks and all that, it's pretty hardy stuff. That doesn't mean we won't have any maintenance on it. Certainly there's going to be some of that. And I would guess essentially more custom build like this will take a bit more. But you're not dealing with a wood issue that they have at Santa Barbara and down at Blanche Reynolds where you've got wear and tear and splinter issues and that kind of thing.
Greg, would they offer any suggestions for us on a yearly schedule of what needs to be done? And so we can kind of fit that into our budget also, so that we need to have some money allocated for repairs and maintenance and.
And yes, and that's part of their deal. And I know they, all these playground companies now prepare your self-auditing guidelines. You go through and check everything to make sure it's all in place, especially when you get to higher structures, right, that you keep all of the guardrails in place and properly reinforced and all that. Now, that's an actual picture. I guess that's the same one. That's
Yeah, from
that
above
St.
actually
Charles.
built.
We were kind of excited by that one, so I know they plugged
Okay,
it.
so now stop this.
This is where we got
Go ahead.
real excited.
Take it away.
Go ahead, Rob. This, on the upper left-hand corner over there is, it's a net with a center that's solid and you bounce. And they said the kids absolutely love it. It's one of their, everyone loves this one. Anyway, and they make them in different sizes, but so you crawl in through the netting and you get in the middle and the whole thing bounces up and down. It was a really neat piece.
And that's the mini one. They said
That's
there's a
the
much
mini
bigger one.
They
for-
put in that really big one, yeah.
Yep. And so that was built by volunteers. I mean, it's obviously prefabricated, but the foundation mounts went in and they put the poles in, and then they stretch and tie in all the wiring and things.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the park is designed, or the structure is designed for younger kids all the way up. It integrates as we go. You're going to start out with a 5-year-old section over here, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. You're going to have something for everybody to do. It's not just one type of a playground that, has bars that are 2 inches off the ground.
It seemed like all the playground companies pretty much go 2 to 5 and 5 to 12.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, I think she was saying, everybody, the kids are really quick to get out of 2 to 5. They want to go hang out
It
with the
didn't
big kids,
last
right?
long.
So that doesn't last too long. But when they're total toddlers, they're going to be in the 2 to 5 zone. But that does show a bunch of the, I mean, that one she said is really super
Really
popular.
dynamic,
yeah.
and in of that. And so they are integrating in their designs some of these newer pieces that have a very different feel to them, that are less linear play. Which is, I'm not going to use the right terms, but basically, some of this new play equipment is much more engaging. A lot of the older play equipment has a linear path, and you go through it, and it's pretty.
This is more of a figure it out and to get there.
And this is, there isn't one path. They can approach it from all different ways. It's much more engaging in a cognitive kind of way, and with their, I think that and it's more physical too. I mean, the way that they're climbing and all these different things. So I think some of this new play equipment is very exciting, and I think the kids would love it. I know my kids, when we've gone to parks with this stuff, are kind of like, wow. And they are taller and they're more climbing, and it's just, more kids can be on it in various different ways instead of this straight path.
Trying to think. So, yeah, different features. I think they're pretty wide open. She was mentioning the one in the lower left was actually
Musical.
somebody promoted a musical approach. So those are actually kind of a drum, I don't know if you call it I'm not a great musician, what you call it, xylophone approach, right? So, and a lot of it, I guess some playgrounds are very concerned about visibility, and that became kind of a recent thing where parents want to be able to sit and see exactly where their kids are. So that goes back and forth. Some places they're not that worried about it. And maybe in our community, we're more a safe community. If you were in downtown LA, maybe be much more concerned about it. But that varies, and that's the community
I
input
think
on
it
how
really
much
depends
you
on the
want.
location too, and Libby is very central. I mean, I think you don't want real dead spots, but I know that over at Sarzodi, that playhouse being the way it is, sometimes it's an attracting nuisance. And people will get up in there. So I think it really depends on the location. And Libby seems to me like it's so centrally focused, and there's so much visibility, and there are people there all the time. It maybe is less of a concern.
But it's probably part of the discussion we'll have is, do we
Yeah.
want to make it too easy for the local population that might think about taking a nap there later at night?
Yeah, you don't want it to become a sleeping spot.
Yeah, so the police to be able to get and see in there easily. We don't want it fully locked out. So that's kind of what they're pointing out here, is the visibility is very good, that some people are interested in. And then accessibility. Some of these playgrounds are all about some kids that might have had an accident or otherwise, and that it's all about accessibility, and that really inspired the community to really build this fully accessible. So I know up in Fremont and also up in Salinas, they very recently built these fully accessible. It's all poured in place, rubber playground, and everything's accessible. And that was their major emphasis. Some other areas, they don't make that the major emphasis, like that St. Charles was semi. And then, so they got older kids areas, and you can see a lot of these are these modular components put in there as well. So more shots for the 2 to 5 zone. And then it talks about how do they do it, the coordinating committee, and the general coordinators, the fundraisers, the public relations, and volunteers, and Robert's talking about the tools, and even during this whole surge of a couple of weeks when they build it, you need a lot of food. And that's actually, they talk all about that, these things we might miss, trying to reach out to the community that could donate food and help out the volunteers. And even a lot of parents are going to help in what happens to their children, so they have zones over there that you kind of take care of the kids. And so it's great they've been through this, and they know how to help coordinate it. It's still a huge effort. We would have a big effort on our side as well, but I think that engagement is what makes the thing fully invested in by the community. And talk about it not being a kit. I mean, it shows a guy up there, looks like he's running a router or a planer, and people up there, screwing in the lumber on everything. And I don't know which one that one is, but you can see that middle shot. That shows a fully engaged community really putting everything all together. So this kind of approach, you're going to spend roughly $30,000, I'm just throwing that out, roughly $30,000 on a consultant. Everything else is buying the materials. And so out of, let's say, a roughly $300,000 budget, we're going to have $270,000 in equipment, no labor, presumably. We're going to be just all, doing volunteers. So you get a big bang for the buck of a big custom job. And a snapshot, I guess, is saying typically 5 to 9 days for all these big jobs they have, And then 2 to 3 days for Leathers and Associates consultants up front doing all this work and pulling everything together and getting the design going. And having team captains for different parts of everything from volunteering and coordinating to the field work. Name tags, identifying who's skilled and unskilled, making sure they're leading, taking care of groups.
Hi, I'm unskilled.
I know, unskilled.
Yeah. So we'll have a skilled test, I guess we'll have to pass to get through that. I'm not sure how that worked out. Might be some feelings hurt on that. We'll see how it goes. Volunteer opportunities for everybody, right? They were saying everything from little kids bringing things and helping things out. It's all they're on top of the safety and the issues with that. And it'd be interesting because I know it can be. I think everything they were using was screwed in, but I know nail guns are a big issue for safety when you get volunteers together. You got to watch those. And the cutoff rule was 13. Yeah, I guess they've got them right there.
13 on the site.
You can work with a parent. 14 to 7 can be independent, and 18 and older can use the power tools.
Unless you're unskilled.
No, they.
Just kidding.
You got to show up and go,
Yeah.
I think the drills are allowed to
Raise
use
your
even
hand if you're
unskilled.
unskilled. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's good experience, right? That's So I think they're showing a few shots here. What I've seen in all these sites I've gone to is the community is so proud of this stuff. They really take it on, and it's really, I don't know how often we really get an opportunity to do something like that where everybody gets fully involved. So it sounds terrific. And this is kind of everybody getting together and taking off on these things because they really tear it up. It's going to be a couple-week type project. And then it's done. They have a huge celebration to kick it off. And I think they're just showing off a shot here. Naples, Florida, I was trying to think, she pointed this one out because
It's unique in that it's multiple stories and it's enclosed. Those stories were enclosed.
This was in Naples, Florida at a private
Remember,
club,
so
but they did one
You
there.
go inside of it and it's enclosed. You can almost see that there's some, I don't know if it's glass.
Oh, that's right, because you can see the tubes in there. They've got slides internal to it, so you can actually
Yes, you go inside
shade
of
it
it
all
and it's
out.
enclosed.
Mhm.
And, yeah.
Going back to Steve's idea of do you shade out some of the components to provide
I think she's just
Summer
pointing out 'cause it's
shade.
very unique. It's not something they.
that's just another really interesting one where it's even got the zip lines in the upper left-hand side there, which are pretty popular now too. They've got them ADA and another style where you just get on and you can do pretty extensive zips. I think they make them up to 80 feet long. And a few different playgrounds.
Oh, yeah, that was an interesting one. That one has the jump bounce middle thing. That's the Carly's Clubhouse has the one that
Sage wants that.
I really like that one.
Sage will be the first.
Do you know some of the costs?
We got a team leader there. So-
Greg, do you know some of the costs of these that we're looking at? Have you got any?
Their
What
cost,
270,000 is going to get us?
270 was a very nice solid dollar amount. They have some, like that St. Charles was more.
Yeah.
But they had the big factor is poured in place rubberized at full accessibility. You know what I'm talking about? It looks like asphalt, but it's
Right,
rubbery.
yeah, I know, yeah.
And it's expensive, but it's fully accessible. You can come in with a wheelchair or
That's
walker
not
and
in
not
our
have an
budget.
issue. And it's very expensive, and it's not often done unless you're fully focused on ADA.
The fundraising part, because the wood chips would be so nice to get.
Well, you know, there are places that have had the put in place and are going back to the wood chips. There are issues with it. It's not
Very expensive to
absolutely
maintain.
the gold standard anymore. It is for accessibility for obvious reasons.
Right.
But I don't know as far as maintenance and actual safety that it's,
I get email junk mail every day about port-in-place patch, how to patch better, how to make it last
There've
longer
been
and do
issues.
it.
It's
Yeah,
tough in the heat too, if you don't have shade over it, which obviously we would be trying to do, but it can heat up quite a bit.
it seems the engineered wood fiber is the preferred alternative. That's the way to go. And that's what we already have at Libby. And we still have the sand over at Surzati. So the sand is actually widely used. Roughly 75% of the city of LA and the county of LA is still using sand.
and
So-
sand safety-wise.
Sand, it turns out, is A-OK, right?
So
We had a little discussion about that with our insurance company, and it really turned out they were pushing us to replace that, and we got into it with one of these vendors that came out and looked at it and said, "You're replacing this? Are you serious? Because it's in fine condition." So we went through it and found out that it's A-OK. We are raking it and reconditioning it better, but they really said at that point, the way it is right there,
It needed maintenance, not replacement.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're really saying that 1,000 is the limit for these ball tests they have of how hard you can impact, and that typically sand and engineered wood fiber rates down around the 400 range. I mean, it's with 1,000 hit is the max, and poured in place is around 750. So it actually is much higher. There's much more incidents of damage or injury, I guess, on the poured in place. So I was kind of surprised to hear that. I just assumed, oh, that's the state of the art, but it does make sense. It's pretty tough stuff. It's a very, I think it's 3 to 4 inches of padded material.
Doesn't move.
Hard base underneath
Just
it.
gives.
Right, right. So these were a couple pictures, yeah, and I don't know, is that a rocket there? I can't even see what it is, but you got the idea. Maybe it's in Fort Lauderdale or, yeah.
I think one of the things with this is it's, with the shade, it's a different discussion. I think the shade is built in. I don't think it's shade structures per se, but I don't know that that's an absolute. They just don't seem to, that isn't part of the examples that they've given us.
But the shade structures are really, it's just a standard feature. So if we felt that was important, I think they would say, well, we've got an option. We could either build a shade structure. So maybe with lumber and all that, if you want a bigger one, it doesn't make sense. And they would say, yeah, stretch fabric, and we can. It is true, I haven't seen a lot of them, but I'm sure because there's quite a few companies that make them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just to touch on the shade structure a little bit, we've been working with Rotary, and, Rotary really advanced this idea of, they were the ones that really came up with the first thought of trying to get a shade structure there for Libby, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. And then we said, well, hang off on that. We're, trying to get new playground equipment, and we want to get that all integrated together. In the meantime, well, what Rotary has been able to commit to at this point is they're willing to provide the funds that they've collected to date, which is I think at least $17,000 towards the project, assuming that it had some shade component. So we originally, I think, had budgeted $60,000 for that. So it's looking like we'll probably, at this point, we can bank on 17 from them, and maybe some from additional sources as well. So,
And Steve, it's probably important to mention that they were really planning to pull together 30 with the hope of getting a
That's
match.
true.
A match of 30 from Ojai Civic.
that's correct.
So even that 17 is getting close, it's
Right.
34 total, if assuming a match.
So that's their commitment at this point, is that they'd be willing to pledge that, like, again, assuming that there's some shade component at the park.
Well, I'll have the last, I don't think there's much more there. I was just going to mention the examples I already did, and that they just did some recently in Fremont and Salinas, and that the Ojai Valley Lions Club is terrific to have them on board. They really talked about it at their meeting, and that core group is really, without that, if we were just saying, oh, let's try to get some people together, that would be difficult. But the Lions Club has a lot of skilled contractors and so on in there, and that's terrific to know they're behind it. And that would be, I think with that, you really could depend on this pulling together and going. And there's still a bunch of other groups, I'm sure, that'd be very interested in getting involved in this, somewhere between the Optimist and the Rotary clubs, and probably missing some other significant groups, maybe even some things like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and all kinds of groups, schools and things, yeah. So I think that was pretty much all I was going to say on that, and I think I was hoping that we could actually agree on and get a recommendation to the council on whether we want to go with modular or with this approach or with this community design build consultant approach. And if there's agreement on that, we could take it to council right away and get authorized to proceed with the RFP process, the request for proposals. And we'd move ahead and either go RFP for modular playgrounds or for consultants. And then we'd come back to the commission and say, we've got these proposals, and do we want to move ahead with it or not? It's not a commitment to do it right now, but it would let us get moving on the process.
It's a path, pick a path.
Right. So at that point, I'll leave it open for any questions I can answer, or would you want to discuss it?
Greg, did you look at the cost of removing the current? How that's going to impact our budget?
I think that is in the volunteer area.
As well?
It is somewhere between our city crews and volunteers. It's
So that wouldn't be a big change.
demolition is relatively straightforward. Everybody likes doing it. Good anxiety reducer. Yeah. So,
Sure, yeah, just we're looking for your
Open it.
feedback and thoughts, and do you like this approach? Do you like this direction? Would you like to go some other direction, or are there some things here that you're liking, or that's missing or lacking?
Well, I've got my suggestion what I'd like to do, but I was on the committee, so I've got a little bit more information, I think. And I think that those that want to know more, they, ask any kind of questions you want to Greg and let you know. My thing is I think that I'm very much into allowing the public and the kids to come in with an organization such as this. I know that it's gonna, I would think the same thing, that there's no way we can do it. But when we've got the Lions Club that is basically wanting to do the project, that's pretty, that's a significant thing for us within the city, and being able to grab onto them and be able to do the work. So, my opinion is I think we should go with this direction. I don't know everybody else. You guys can make a point, but I think that I'm kind of sold on going to the community design build approach.
I first want to, this is a discussion item. Did anyone in the public, I don't have any speaking cards. Did anyone want to speak or anything? Okay. I just wanted to say that thank you for doing all the work in the committee, because I know you guys have been working on this for a long time. And I definitely, there was one modular one that the first one obviously looked the best to me, as far as especially bringing design intent. It seemed, it had everything. And it seems like a real quick fix and an easy way to go, and it was nice. But after personally working on the skate park and doing this process and having the kids come and having a public meeting and the parent, everyone, having an input on what was wanted by the people that would use it was so important, and they all had ownership, and it made such a difference to me than us telling these parents with kids that, my kids are old. They don't go there anymore, but we spent so much time there. And even when we didn't live here, we would come up here on the weekends when it's sunny up here and cold and foggy in Ventura. I think we have so many, the whole county is using that park. I definitely like Leather's Associates process, and I like the community involvement, and I think it's feels like Ojai, to get the community and having the Lions Club and just having everyone out there. It would be incredible to see that happen. And I think opening that up to the public, I think a lot of parents would be happy to be involved in that. So I'm kind of leaning that way. I hate to also pick for everybody, but that's where I would go with the community. Do you have any thoughts?
I agree. It has the Ojai feel to it. I don't think we can go wrong involving the community on that level. We're going to get a lot less blowback on something like that. So,
Well, I think too, the idea that they incorporate some of the theme of Ojai into it, I think that is a really
Well, that would be cool.
positive. Yeah,
Yeah, I
if
don't know
it's a
what they
bell
would
tower,
make, but yeah.
you know, if they can do that, I mean, I'm sure they can, Greg, I mean.
They do, it's part of their process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
an
I mean,
integrated part
the
of
way when we were speaking to the lady on the phone, it was, you know, she was pretty much
Well,
giving
it
us.
looks a lot less antiseptic than
Exactly, some are just straightforward.
modular
okay, here's the
stuff.
boiler.
I mean, that's, as you guys said, that's something the community can be proud of. We
Yeah.
can, you know, unique to us.
And I
There'll
think
never be another
you're
like it.
also going to get a lot more playground because it's same thing with the skate park. We had so many people volunteer materials and services that we were able to get features that we would have never been able to have for our budget. So you end up getting way more when you walk away from the project.
It's an interesting point you're saying about the skate park, and I guess I hadn't really thought or heard that before, because I wasn't here through that process, but that was huge, I guess,
I mean, all
public
the
input.
backhoe work was donated, materials, time, yeah, tons of stuff. So we were able to get things that, you know, we would have never been able to afford, so.
I doubt if Leathers would come forward with any examples of failures, but I mean, are they batting 1,000, or do you know?
I appreciate that. I'll make sure we go through that. I just know every time I called a city and they'd say we have, you know, these bigger cities, or I'd find nice playgrounds, and they'd say, well, we've got 10 playgrounds, but the one that all the crowd goes to is this one. This is the custom one. All the other ones are kind of local parks, but this one, boy, you can't. We just get everybody. It just gets heavily used. That's maybe one downside, is it might almost be overly attractive if it becomes. I don't know if it'd be that spectacular, but you know that you might end up getting heavily used. I think one of the things, presuming we really work it out too, and this all worked out, is that pretty darn quick is Sarzati. And if it did work out and we wanted to go that approach, we'd be pretty well wired, and maybe 3 years later everybody's had a rest and ready to hit it again. We have the process ready to roll.
I think it's interesting too, because from my perspective, you're not really giving anything up, because all of those components that are modularized are available. I mean, if that's what people want, and there's a lot of that modular stuff you want to integrate into it, you haven't given any of that up because they are happy to integrate those pieces into your design. So as they get the feedback from the community, that, you know, there's nothing that's off the table, and they work with all of these companies. So, and they've said there have been groups they've worked with that wanted this one thing, so they get that one thing and they go to that company. And it's also, so I don't think we lose anything as far as opportunity for the modulars when we go this direction. I think we just gain, because I think community involvement is so hard to do well. I mean, even when we try here and we have public meetings and we try and engage the public, it is a very difficult thing to do. And this is part of what they are so excellent at, is engaging the public in their process. And they have figured out how to do it.
Right.
Down to working with the volunteer organizations, getting into the schools and prepping there to work with those kids. They seem to, and they put a huge priority on it. I mean, that's a huge part of the piece of the puzzle for them with their firm. It isn't something they're doing because they need to do it, because they have to. I don't think they see how to do the process without doing it. They're not true to their process without that being a really strong piece of their design. So that's the part that I really respected, and it was, I didn't go into the meeting feeling a strong push to either direction, but after speaking to the woman and seeing the presentation, seeing what they'd done, I was absolutely convinced that the piece that I feel like we're often missing in Ojai is how to engage the public on so many projects. I mean, we try. It's not that there isn't an effort made, but I don't know that we're definitely not professionals at doing that per se. And so I think they bring a component to that will be so welcome. And I think the community will really like it, and I think we will benefit from that and have a wonderful project.
Anyway,
Maybe
I
they'll-
was going to say, it's a bit shocking that we haven't at least identified a real competitor or somebody else who delivers a similar product out there,
No.
which makes it a bit of a challenge.
Because even the ones where you can community build, they aren't offering you public outreach. They're not offering you, a way to, they might offer you some limited services from that one we saw on how to do it and maybe some supervision, but none of the others offered anything about public involvement.
Yeah.
This is exclusive
That's
to their
what
model.
stood out. I
Yeah,
think
we'd
is-
have to lead that process.
Yeah.
And maybe we can, if this is what we decide, we can do our part as well and let the public know and put it in the brochure
Oh,
that
yeah.
this is coming and, you know, before we get to the point where they're at the school and I'm sure
Definitely. Well, and they have that in their plan.
Okay.
They actually have press releases to help you
Okay.
and help you identify all of your key constituencies and all of your key players and how to get to all those groups. They help you do that. I mean, they don't do it for you, but they give
Yeah,
you the
but
tools to think about.
It just seemed like a well-organized organization that does this, does it very good. And I think in the long run, I just keep going back to people like the Lions Club. Those guys are going to be the heart and soul of this, and for them to step up already, and I mean that's a big decision, and I think we need to look. I mean, I'm sure they'll help on any playground that we have, but they don't want this. You know, oh, you got to go here, or we're not. They'll help us in anything. But organizations are already starting to come with us, and we haven't even got.
That's great.
You know, that's a big thing. That's a big thing for our city.
And it has so many elements that our community can contribute, like the art. We have so many artists here and talented carpenters and contractors and
Well,
just anybody.
And being able to engage youth that way.
kids and- Yeah.
If you're going to Topa Topa, 500 students, and you're having all these kids participate,
Exactly.
that would be exceptional. You're going to get a lot of volunteers.
Not necessarily. I think we're really looking for
Informal feedback.
back.
Yeah, just feedback tonight, is that it?
Well, I mean,
Thank you.
it would be good to get a formal, I don't know if it's
You can
Steve, how you
certainly
handle
make a
that.
motion if you want to.
But I mean, to make sure, because it would be, I mean, we could roll this right to the council and get the approval to formally RFP for a consultant, if that's, it seems like, I don't know if it's unanimous or not, but if that was, then we could go right to council, get the approval, and then put that out for a few weeks, because all this stuff, it adds up quick.
Yeah.
And then all
I
of a
would-
sudden, come back and catch a date for the Parks and Rec Commission to come back and say, okay, these are the proposals, are we good to go? And
This
then
would go to
that recommendation
planning.
could go to the council.
And I think once we have an RFP developed, we'd bring it back too for some input as well.
Well, I'll make a motion that we allow staff to present to the city council our concept here that we've chosen, which is the community outreach and design build. And anything that, Greg, you need to go, let's put it on to them. I think this is something that we can all be very proud of, so.
And one of the things that's a little tricky just to kind of work out from kind of the legal perspective is, we can't really pick a particular
Yeah.
vendor at this point. We're gonna have to go out and craft the RFP. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's an RFP for the community
Consultant.
design build
So we're-
For either
consultant approach.
modular or community built.
Yeah, exactly.
To pursue an RFP that supports that approach.
I'm
Community
sorry.
design build consultant
Needs to
approach.
specify, community build versus.
Well, I did.
He
Okay.
did say he didn't
Consultant,
specify
yeah.
company.
We
Okay.
might want to run that by us again,
Yeah.
Yes.
a little more clearly.
Okay.
That might be good to
I'm glad you're
restate.
trying. You go.
I want to make a motion that we allow the staff in the Public Works Department to present to the city council our choice, which is a design-build concept, and to seek an RFP so that we can view what the costs are going to be, and so that they can return it back to the council for approval.
Community build.
Can I?
That was the one thing I was gonna ask if you
You
wanted
could
to
add
add.
that in there.
Yeah, the community,
Because they're all
a
design.
consultant
The
for
community
design
involved.
and community build
Yes.
process, because that's what makes it unique, right?
Yes.
That's what separates it from the other, because the others can design, they just don't have the community
Community.
build process.
I keep calling it community outreach.
You'll be doing that.
Is that good?
Yeah, I think we're clear.
I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, now,
All in
thank
favor?
you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes, thank you. Greg, quick question, do we know of any playgrounds that Leathers has done in Southern California or kind of in this general region? 'Cause I might-
I'll get a more extensive list, but I know the one in Ventura, Blanche Reynolds, and the one in Santa Barbara.
Oh, they did do the Blanche Reynolds, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, they did
okay.
Blanche
And then the
Reynolds.
Salinas one,
Yeah.
which is, didn't they, which
Kind of
got big
far for a
awards.
weekend drive, but yeah, that's up there.
Well, I was
That
to
just
see-
was completed.
Some of these might be JPIA members, and so I could
Right.
maybe get a little feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, so
going
Celine-
back to Commissioner Ford's question about, have they really hit a home run everywhere? And I
You
think
can
it'd be
always
good
Google,
to check with some of the other cities and see what experiences they've had.
Right, I'm sure they'll give us a full list, but I know Fremont just did theirs, whatever, last year, and then Salinas within the past year, and then Santa Barbara is further out, and then Blanche Reynolds is a school district, although all the other ones were cities. But I think there's quite a few other ones we could get a list as well. It did cross my mind there, do you think there's any necessity, or we could even just do it through an advertisement in the paper, to maybe state this is being proposed to the city if the community wanted to, was opposed to it for some reason? Would they, I mean, it wouldn't seem like they'd be opposed to this approach, but they might say, no, I just want you to put in a modular playground.
I
I
think
don't-
they're gonna get their turn
Well,
when
and
they go through this
I
process.
don't think
aren't
you,
they?
I mean, I think
Yeah.
we're not saying no to modular playground equipment.
No.
Right, right.
Modular playground equipment is still very much part of this design.
Yeah, we can choose for maybe
Yeah.
one of those manufacturers, if we come up with, hey, we want to slide them, yeah, and it's gonna look like this, they can pull that straight out of the catalog.
Right.
and stuff. So they're really not supplying anything other than,
Yeah, I mean, the worst case, they could say, hey,
Keys is
we
what
just,
they're
our
supplying.
recommendation at this
Yes.
is we want all this modular stuff, just forget about
The
building
difference
anything.
is,
Highly
in
unlikely.
my mind,
but-
the way I see this differently is with this, we are hiring experts to facilitate a process. On the other, we're buying structures to install in our park.
Mhm.
So one, you're buying a physical product that they've produced, and then the other, you are hiring a consultant to facilitate a process, because you're not buying any materials from them.
yeah, and that's what our thing is we're just moving forward. with
Mm-hmm.
the-
I like that, that's a good quote.
I think it kind of clearly divides the two different
Exactly.
pieces.
Did you come up with that, Sage, experts to facilitate the process? Because that seems like a
Yeah.
good bumper sticker for Leathers Association.
Hey.
It's like,
Might wanna forward
Yes.
that to them.
that's really pretty good.
Good thing it's on tape, because I won't remember in a couple
But
of days.
they would purchase the components for us,
We can
Yeah.
purchase through them.
through them.
They
Or
have
we could-
relationships with all of these companies. They have
Right.
relationships with Game Time. They have
Right,
people
right, right.
and you can buy through them, which actually, yes, but we didn't have to. If we wanted to go
Okay.
back and buy
That's
from
right.
Game Time, we could go buy from Game Time.
That's right.
just up to us where we choose to purchase.
Or if we
That's
wanted
right.
something built that they don't have that, say, one of the construction companies wanted
Yeah.
to do, we can do that also.
Or if Greg wanted to steal the old rocket from Soul
So
Park.
Pretty cool.
Greg, can you
Get a
tell
little
us,
competition at the bell tower there.
can you tell us what the average timeline is for a community built?
They were saying
I
that
mean,
6
I saw
months.
when the three.
They were saying we're in the realm to get it done. To really nail it by July, August is what they were saying we could do if we push it.
Okay.
But we were also recognizing that's a very hot period that we might want to shoot more for
Yes.
October, or October can be a hot month too, maybe, you
Yes.
know.
Let's
But
be
they
done
will.
before October,
I think
or
just
start
be-
after
Yeah, I
October.
think to be really strategic and pick the best time, and then also that time frame when we don't have anything, what's the option?
The time frame is
Yeah.
more based on what we can do
Well, you don't
than
wanna
what
do
they
it.
can do.
October.
They could be,
July day.
they can do it pretty fast if
That's
we can do it
exactly
pretty
what I'm
fast,
saying,
but
is
we.
Right.
okay, Let's
We'll open up on Ojai Day, that's what Roger said.
Don't put any pressure on.
Yeah.
We did it with the skate park. It
That's
seems
right.
perfect.
Skate park,
but
same
no, we
thing.
did skate park grand opening,
A lot of time, you have,
no pressure.
Well, good thing you're moving with it.
you better get going tonight.
Yeah. I think if we get it going, I mean, it's true, this process, they put out, we get the RP, and if we choose one firm, which at this point, it's fairly common knowledge that we're not aware of, we're gonna really search high and low to find any other firms that might have proposals.
Yeah.
But once they get that process going, I mean, it's pretty quick for the design, and then there's a big period of pulling it all together and getting
Yep.
volunteers
Everything.
together and all that. And that's, I think that almost seems ideal. It seems like we're on a good timeline, that we'll be able to get this all done in early spring, and then we've got a nice
Okay.
5-month period to really organize and get ready to hit it, because it's all about hitting it for 2 weeks or so, yeah.
Yeah.
That's next fiscal
Exciting.
year.
All right, terrific, thank you.
New playground.
Yeah, I think I'm picking up on your comment over there, excuse me. The budget for the playground is actually spread over 2 fiscal years. And that was the anticipation, that it might, would spill over in between those 2 years. We weren't thinking that we would get it done before June 30th, and so in order to make that pencil out, that's why it got spread out like that. But yeah, we'd be using the last part of the 1 year and the
Well, we'll
beginning
just have
part
to
of the
see
other.
how excited the council gets.
That's right.
Tomorrow, that's up to you, buddy.
So glad.
I'll pull.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay.
If I could make a suggestion, please, Madam Vice Chair, since we still have Greg here, if we could maybe just really briefly touch on the Sarzati Park playground surfacing. We
Okay.
kind of talked about it a little bit there. I wanted to touch on this because we had brought this previously to the Parks Commission, and we've decided to go a change in course, and it wasn't after a lot of internal discussion, i.e. I fought Greg really hard on this, until I eventually came around, and actually there were some good. So just to go back, when we had our JPIA inspection, our risk management inspection back spring or early summer, they identified the surfacing at Sarzati Park as being inadequate. And one of the things that they said was, well, it doesn't have enough depth, and there's some rock, and they included a photograph of a large rock in the sand out there. I think Greg and I have been out there probably 10 times since. We've never found anything out there like that. We're not saying that it didn't exist on that particular day. Bottom line is, we think we can be a lot more efficient with our money. It was about $7,000 to replace the sand, right, and to bring in the engineered wood chips. Everybody, we've looked at this very carefully, certainly, and as Greg stated, sand is definitely an acceptable material. It meets all the safety requirements. What they're going to be doing is rehabilitating the sand out there so that we can stretch it out for a couple of more years. They'll clean it, they'll rake it, they'll get the bits and oak tree parts out of it. If there are any large rocks or pieces like that, we'll get that out. They'll add additional depth as needed under the components to get to that where it needs to be. And then we'll be able to stretch that out for a couple of years until we ultimately, hopefully, can do the Sarzati playground and then replace because part of it is, you're probably going to want to replace the whole base underneath there and the border and everything. So we just felt that it was a little more better use, a little more bang for our buck at this time to be able to keep the sand, but to reconstitute it. But I just wanted to let you know that because we had talked about it and we had indicated that was the route that we were going to go. But we feel that this is definitely a better direction to take in the meantime. So
Did you do the border around it, the wood?
we would at the time that we redo well, Greg can answer that question.
I think that's where it kind of kept domino affecting, is we were going to go just replace the material only, and then we looking at the
Right.
border was so bad, and then we looked at some of the fence, and we said, well, there's a lot of talk about opening up fences.
It'd be lovely to take down the fence, whether
It-
you do the border or not.
And that's kind of, there was discussion about it, and then there's, even at the playground, we asked people, and some people right there were, no, don't do that. So it seemed to be opening up a big can of worms. So really, the material alone was $7,000, but the border was several thousand. I didn't
Yeah.
think it was that expensive.
Yeah.
And
No,
we could use some other
$10,000
materials.
project, and it's.
All of a sudden it became
in a
10
site
or
that might
12.
not be the site, yes.
And it was going to
And-
be a couple, a week or two of our crew really by the time we pulled it all out. And then they say when you get down to the base, a lot of times, next thing you want to put a drainage layer in, you start getting into all that. And if we really are looking at the capital improvement, how it's rolling up, maybe we should just go ahead and save our $12,000. And I think we're also under the impression this stuff was not meeting standards. And all of a sudden, a vendor comes in and says, hey, we're putting a brand new playground in next month in Soul Park. I'll have a come by and test this for you. But I can guarantee you it passes without a doubt. I can just kick my foot here, and it's just standard sand. And they've got 80% of the parks in the city of LA and city and county of LA are still using this stuff. It's still very common everywhere. And so between all that, we kind of recognize. So he's going to, I don't know if he's been over to Soul Park lately, but they supposedly are right in the middle that they just put a new playground in over there. And that guy who does the testing is going to stop by and do it either pro bono, maybe not after he hears the decision here tonight, but he was going to do that testing for us and just to show us how good it is, and also do a quick audit.
I
which
really
is-
appreciate that we
Yeah.
found a solution that holds it over, don't spend a lot of money, and that we're safe, and that we've made it work.
I agree, I'd rather save the money and
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
look at the
Well,
big picture.
And being on site day to day, we have no complaints of injury. We have 10-week summer camps there. We've, at least to my recollection, have never had an injury in that playground. So maybe, the talk of the one bigger rock, but there's even talk about it being used as a litter box.
We've not
also
found
had
that.
Not even found that to be a
Haven't.
problem at the park. So there's talk about that. There's
kids
no
love
complaints.
sand, by the way.
They do, and there's no
Do they
complaints.
say?
They actually used to have a couple of little
Yes, the diggers. Yes.
hand diggers in there,
Mhm.
cranes, and they removed those probably because they
probably
just
wore out.
broke down.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Fun.
we have sustained, to my knowledge, in 12 years, no injury due to the actual sand in that playground. So
Yeah, we have beaches with lots of sand. Where we stood.
what's that?
Sand's good.
Excellent.
Yeah, and of course, the whole concept on that is to provide a cushion for somebody if they fall from a height, and it's to prevent a skull fracture or some serious injury. Kids are gonna fall off playground equipment and they might get bumps and bruises, or unfortunately maybe break a wrist or something like that. But the real goal there is if they fall, so that they don't break their neck, get a skull fracture, something like that, some real serious injury. So with enough depth, it cushions the fall. Greg, do we have that on the schedule? Do we know yet when we're gonna do that rehab work there?
I know the crew already bought the rakes and have already gone through the raking and all that.
Okay.
And during the rains we just had, they were gonna re-fluff it. They do a deep fluff. They supposedly already checked the depth and it was good, but they're reconfirming that. I just put a note to make sure we're all
Yeah,
finalized on
it's
that.
depth and compaction.
So the
is part
depth
of
was
it.
all, I think it's good, but we'll confirm it to be sure and fluff it as well.
Okay.
Well, and that slide
Thanks,
is the
Craig.
biggest issue, right?
What?
The slide is the biggest issue.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's your fall zone.
Yeah.
And that one isn't even that high of a slide, so I think the risk is real minimal too.
6 feet, yeah. Thank you, Greg.
Okay.
Okay, now we'll start with we already kind of started, with the recreation staff reports. Do you want to do that, or soft, please?
Well, the skate park update.
Well, let's see, I'm trying to think of where we are. I think we had reported previously that the lights had been approved, and the ordinance is going, gosh, Lee, it's been a, problem is I write these staff reports and then some time goes by, so I believe that's coming back for second
Second
reading
reading, yeah.
at January 13th. I wrote the staff report a month ago, so forgive me for forgetting. So that was introduced by City Council, and so that will be coming back for second reading. Again, that's the confiscation ordinance for folks that have improper equipment, bicycles and scooters at the park, at the skate park. So that appears to be moving forward. I don't have any new news on the lights, but I know they're out there working on trying to pull something together. So as soon as we hear anything more on that, I'll let you know. We talked about Sarzati Park playground surfacing. Were there any more questions on the skate park before we leave that general topic? The recreation coordinator position, I'm very pleased to announce that we've made a hire. And in fact, that person is here tonight, and then I'll ask her to come up for a moment. Allison Desbaye, who has been a part-time recreation specialist with the department for, boy,
2.5
I was going to
years?
say it, at least 2 years. She successfully applied for the job, and we offered it, and she accepted. So we're very, very happy to have Allison on board. Her first day was January 2nd. Her first day in the office was January 2nd. So we're working on loading her up with various responsibilities and things to do, including a couple things that I haven't been able to move off my plate. And again, I think you're fairly familiar here with Allison. She was at a recent meeting, and you saw the great work that she did on the rebuilding of the website. We're extremely lucky and proud to have Allison on board. Of course, she has a degree in recreation and a background on that, and that's really the direction that she's looking to go. So I think I've said enough to introduce you. Allison, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, well, I guess I could say that I was probably expecting it knowing Steve, but yeah, I'm really excited to have the position. Been working towards this pretty much since I graduated college, and I love this community and this department, and it's been an adventure so far. I've been doing it in the interim for a couple months now, and it's been fun and challenging, and I hope I do you all proud. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and excited to be here.
Thank you.
Congratulations, yeah.
So glad to
That's
have
great.
you.
Thank you.
We did have 5 people apply, and we interviewed 3 candidates. As you know, it was an in-house recruitment, so Allison was
Congratulations.
selected.
We had some very excellent candidates to choose from.
Yeah, we
That's
did.
nice.
Just moving on the list, just to remind everybody that obviously we have a vacancy here, and an item is going to council next Tuesday for the recommendation on the appointment. And I don't want to steal the thunder here. Would you like to? Well, who was on the interview committee?
I don't know.
I
Commissioner-
was.
You were?
Mhm.
So would you like to share who you recommended to council?
Yes. Adam Dutter, right over there. Hi. He will be joining us as our new commissioner on the
So-
Parks and Recreation Commission.
So that's the recommendation, will be going to
Council?
council, and so that'll be up for their ratification on Tuesday. And so hopefully we'll be back to full strength with our February meeting. And then, as we do every year, next meeting, we'll put on the agenda for the selection of the chair and vice chair for the coming year.
And I
Just
wanted
let
to
you
mention
know.
too, we had a lot of really qualified candidates as well for the commission. It was really nice to meet all the people that came and interviewed, so congratulations.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Katsas at this point.
Okay. As you see in front of you, your winter activity guide, and you'll see right on the front of that guide, we have our open house day. So mark your calendar.
Okay.
Hopefully, if you turn into the guide on page 4 and 5, you'll see a lovely photo, which was also on our postcard about some of our commissioners at that event last year. So we're hoping you can all attend that event. As always, these activity guides go to all the public elementary schools and some of the private. They've also been distributed to the library, Ojai Library, Chamber of Commerce, Visitor Center. And I could just move right into, like I said, on page 4 and 5, you'll see not only our open house mentioned there, but we have a few new special events. We're gonna have a pool tournament, we're gonna try some bingo nights, we'll see how that works out. And coming up this Friday night, we have our parent night out. Again, that gives the parents an opportunity to drop their child or children off at the rec department, and for $10, they'll get pizza and popcorn and beverage and a nice movie. So it seems like the parent night outs have been more attended because than our family movie nights. We found that, family movie nights, you can just be at home with your family. You don't necessarily have to take them all over to the rec department, but when you have an opportunity to drop your kids off,
To get
that
away from
seems
your
to be
family.
a bit more popular for
Such a great idea.
Imagine that.
Date night. You should just call it date night.
It is really a date night.
Most of them charge $10
You
an
could hook
hour.
up some of the restaurants,
Yes.
your coupons. Just kidding.
So, as always, we promote it on our Facebook page and do some mass email blasts to our patrons. And those have been working out quite nice. But we're hoping to see some good attendance on some of the newer offerings, our bingo night and our pool tournament. We've received a few pre-registrations for our pool tournament, which
Oh,
That's
good.
cool.
yeah, and I've noticed too, since we do, pretty much the game room is open just for free play every afternoon, it seems to be increasing in numbers
Oh,
of
good.
just kids
Right.
and adults showing up and playing in that game room. And it's particularly more used because of the basketball, just move right into our youth basketball program, but as kids are practicing in the gym, siblings are in the game room, parents are in the game room while they wait for their children to finish their practices. So our youth basketball league, our opening games start this Saturday.
So games will be held from, starting as early as 8 in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening, both at Sarasota, the John Martin Gym, and over at Matilda. And you can find all of those schedules of games on our website. They're all listed on there. Whether you're a parent or grandparent or friends, you can always just go on that website and get game times there. Last year we had 280 participants in the basketball program. This year we're at 314.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So it's a nice little bump up in attendance or participation.
Challenge has been finding coaches.
And
But they
is,
meant it.
as it is every season, to find coaches, they all have to be vetted with, through the fingerprint process, fill out paperwork, and so I'm happy to say that Allison, through a lot of, hard work and perseverance, we now have coaches for every team.
Oh, great.
Because they're all volunteer coaches, and that can be difficult to do every season, to get someone to step up to the plate and give their time every Saturday for the next 8 weeks. We started our new yoga class just last night, and we had 6 people attend. So we're hoping through word of mouth and through our social media again, that we'll see attendance.
When is that class offered? What days or
It is,
week and what time?
Wednesday is, so just last night was our first class, so it's every Wednesday night. It's primarily a drop-in, so it's a $10 drop-in. It's at 7:15 p.m. at Sarasota Park's multi-purpose room. So you can go $10 drop-in, or you can buy a prepaid punch card for 6 classes prepaid, which comes out to $7.50 a class, or $45.
So that every Wednesday night, you said at 7:15
Every
p.m.
Wednesday night.
I like the
7:15.
timing of it. So if you work and you get home and.
There's a Zumba class right before that at 6, so Zumba goes from 6 to 7, and then it's followed by, which is also a drop-in class, followed by yoga at 7:15 every Wednesday night.
I'm gonna go.
A few other things to mention, our gymnastics program, we just started a new session right at the end of December. We have again, it's sort of one of the bread and butter programs of the rec department. We currently have 186 participants in that program. Usually it tops 200, but it seems like in all of these, late December, early January programs, whether it's a standard year-round program or some of our shorter session classes, we kind of struggle in the month of January to full numbers. People are just recovering from the holiday season, so. But we're doing fine number-wise. Hopefully by the next Park and Rec Commission, we can actually give you some revenue, mid-year revenue numbers comparing to last fiscal year. Not a recreation department program, but I wanted, since I'm on the Youth Foundation board, I wanted to mention a couple of their programs that are coming up. They always do their annual Martin Luther King Day event in Libby Park.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, that'll be on January 19th, which is Martin Luther King Day. So the Ojai Youth Foundation actually runs that 4-hour event, and they have their banner actually across Ojai Avenue right now. So I wanted to, encourage you to all attend that event. And that event is really spearheaded by the students at Nordhoff High School. They get support from volunteers to run that event, but they do a lot of the work. Pretty much a handful of seniors right now at Nordhoff putting that event together. So it's quite impressive what they accomplished. And then another event supported by the Ojai Youth Foundation in the Girls Empowerment Club group workshop. They're putting on a fundraiser for the Youth Foundation. It's called Warrior One. It's about 10 girls from Florida who embark on this. They go to Peru and they do I think a 5-day hike, hiking overnight in Peru. Actually, I think it might even be longer than that, more than a week, maybe it's 10 days. But anyway, it's a documentary that is going to be Saturday, held at the Matilaha Auditorium, Saturday, January 24th. Students, it'll be $5 for students, $10 for adults. It'll be shown at 3 p.m. So there'll be soon flyers distributed kind of all around the valley, but I wanted to, again, in support of the Youth Foundation, just mention that Saturday, Matilaha Auditorium, or Saturday, January 24th, Matilaha Auditorium. The movie is called Warrior One. And if you want a little more information on that movie, you can go to warrior1movie.com, and it really gives a nice overview of the documentary and what it's all about. But it is these 10 girls from Florida who come from very challenging home lives get this great opportunity to go to Peru, and then they pair them up with 10 students, 10 youth from Peru, and they go on this journey.
That's cool.
In the mountains of Peru. So hopefully you can again attend
I'm going to-
that event in support of the Youth Foundation. Any questions about programming that we have going on at the rec department? All the programs that you see in the activity guide are going well, and as I said, the January, we seem to struggle in those January, that month, just because of the holiday season. As far
It's
as
hard to get going.
Participation numbers. We're excited about our basketball league and season.
How has the dodgeball been going?
That has really fallen off the,
All the way on, just the,
I would say the last 3 Friday nights.
okay, so December, January is bad, but before
Yeah.
that it was okay?
It was okay.
All right.
Yeah, but we've, for whatever reason, and when we do our movie nights too, like when we cancel it's not really canceling a dodgeball night, it's putting something in place of dodgeball, so like.
And it's first and third,
like
which
this
is,
Friday, we're having our parent night out, so there won't be dodgeball.
so we're having a hard time with consistency
Yeah.
with
It
the
is-
schedule. Because
it
that was
is
the only
a-
reason I was bringing it
is
up,
a
is because when it was so
consistent schedule.
strong, is when it was every Friday.
Yeah.
It was
every-
every
the
Friday.
kids knew.
And
It
so,
was, and then we started adding, some
Other
other
stuff.
stuff to the program, and it lost its, I think, the consistency.
'cause you're
for that.
doing-
It's like, oh wait, you're not doing it tonight?
You can't.
and then they don't come again the next time, yeah.
So
I was
we
just,
were-
as I was reading it, and I know that, I think it'd be interesting to try and make it every Friday, except, because it makes it even harder when you're doing first and third and then schedule things on it.
Yeah,
So if we were doing it every Friday night,
You know,
we
one,
were a bit responsible for that.
Plus you're hitting 2 different
maybe
age
the-
groups. You got that age group and the
rise of
gym.
it, if you will.
yeah. No, I know, and I
A
just,
little bit,
I
a
wish we
little
could bring it back, because I think it's something that there are
To
kids
do
out there,
Friday
well,
night.
and it's a group of kids who are looking for something to do on a Friday
It's
night.
physical.
sure.
I think we need to support it and try and make it work, even if it's lagging
Yeah,
right
we-
now. Let's bolster it back up and get it going again.
Here's the thought, and one of the things that I was wondering as I was hearing this conversation, and this may be totally off base, which is, if you offer it every week, after, 4 or 5 or 6 months, are people gonna kind of get tired of it type of thing, get
They
burned out
didn't
on it?
when it was
And-
in
and
its-
I
Yeah,
I-
height
I-
of popularity.
I recognize that might not be the case, but that thought led me to this thought, which is, perhaps we could say, and I'm just brainstorming here, well, we'll run it for like 4 months or 3 months, so February, March, April, every Friday night, I'm just
Yeah.
talking off the top of my head here, you'll have it.
Summer.
And then you maybe even, you could take a break for 6 weeks or something like that, and there may be good times to do that, like,
You could do a couple
maybe you
dates.
don't do it in December or January, maybe you don't do it,
Right.
I don't know how summer and the breaks affect that dynamic anyways.
Yeah, if I can interject, because you mentioned that, when it was every Friday night, it was going strong, and for a long time it was, and then we started to notice the drop-off even when we were doing it every Friday night, because I think the kids start saying, oh, it's going to be there next week, we'll go next week, and then we started adding in the movie nights, and so I would and with this new activity guide, our goal was to do a movie every other Friday night and dodgeball every other Friday night for the most part. And so that's why we put it in the guide that way as the first and third Friday.
Okay.
To try and give consistency to it, because I think if it is every week, they do get burnt out on it eventually.
Okay.
So we're going to try and do consistency and see if we can get them. I know maybe the age group may have trouble with the first and third Friday, but I think that they can figure out the rotation of it. I think that
it's
it
just
might help.
an age group we really need to work to engage.
Oh, I completely
and
agree.
We just don't have that many items, so I
Yeah.
think we need to work hard when we have something that has worked to try
Yeah.
and make it work. And in
Agreed.
that drop-in format. And the reason we can't use the big gym is because they're set up Friday over the weekend till Monday.
Well.
Because they're still set up.
Gymnastics goes till 7 essentially, by the time they finish at.
But they don't break down.
Finish at 6:30, no,
Yeah.
they have to break.
They break
They
down
do break
for the
down on
weekend
Fridays.
for
They have to
the
because
adult
of gymnastics.
basketball.
Right.
So there's another way
But it
to
would
look at
push
it
it
too,
later.
is you could use the bigger gym later. Just a
could,
thought.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
other
maybe
opportunities to
it's
program.
possibility.
And
Dodgeball.
And the fact of the matter is too,
7 to
then you
9.
could have two groups we're going at the same
Yeah,
time,
that's
different
what I
age
said.
groups, which is always a nice, if you have parents and you drop one kid over there and another kid to the movie.
Right.
It's just,
It's true.
I know a
Okay,
lot of
we'll give
parents
it some
that drop
thought,
off.
yeah.
Like I said, we're even noticing the family movie nights seem to be dropping off a little bit more. So it is
more of a summer thing.
maybe so, but it's just.
It'll be
it's
interesting to
The
see how
holidays.
this season plays out and
Yeah,
see
we're
if those
gonna-
those numbers pick up or not. And
Yeah.
Because if they don't, we'll probably drop that. So some
Yeah.
of these things are a
Or
bit
maybe seasonal and
experimental.
figure it out, yeah.
And seasonal. We're
So the other
experimenting
thing
with
too
it.
is maybe, I hear the feedback on the dodgeball losing its oomph too, which I totally think is legitimate. Could we brainstorm other things that are drop-in for that group that
Sure.
are similar to dodgeball?
Sure.
Instead of
The same.
instead of backing off, offering
having anything.
and not having anything and just
Replace
kind
it
of
with the
acknowledging that
subs-
we haven't done it, let's see if we
We
can
could do a
find
game room.
some other game.
We could just do
Well,
a game room night.
But some of those
to drop-
big, I think these big active
Yeah.
games, I think
Yeah.
dodgeball is good. I mean, this is not the right game, but there's a game called Gaga. Oh my gosh. And you can set it up, you can do it indoor or outdoor, and they set up these tables and you get inside of it. We would, and they actually have these pieces and it's like dodgeball on the ground. You have to have it on the ground and hit people's feet. They put one in at Miners Oaks. OVS has one. They're all outdoor ones. But for instance, it's a,
Never heard of it.
well, it's super fun. It's a little bit like, it's called a Gaga pit, and you get in and you throw the ball and roll it around at people's feet. But there are other, maybe if we can find some other games that are
thinking
in a similar vein.
Major- Yeah.
that are
a
physical.
game that are physical.
Yeah, where the kids can come out and drop in, and I don't know, I just keep thinking, we struggle with that age group, so if we could
It's
maybe
okay.
brainstorm some
Yeah.
ways to
Well, that's
get the Fridays going.
that's what we
I
do.
think if you could do the dances, I mean, I have a kid
bring
that
back the
totally
dances.
missed out the dances.
Yeah.
Never got to, school ones, but these were always fun,
Directed
The
them
kids
for
always
years.
talked about them.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal.
Even if they were quarterly.
Well, absence
Even if they
makes
were
the
quarterly.
the heart grow fonder. Maybe
That's
it's
right.
time to bring
Time
it
to bring it
back.
back.
and
I've heard a lot of good stories about those dances.
maybe we'll see an outpouring. And a lot of the things.
See,
you
everybody's
talk
laughing in the audience.
A lot of the things. A lot of the things you
No
talk
dancing
about
at the
are
Hanging out.
interest driven. This is how it happens, and people will come in and they will say, when are you going to bring dances back? And then as staff, we
Build it
get
and they will
together.
come.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get together and we don't mind, trying new
We do the-
things, obviously, and
yeah.
brainstorming stuff. So we do have a staff meeting next Wednesday, and that's when we discuss
Bring
these
back
kind
the
of
dance.
topics, dances, physical activities, maybe
You know,
something different than
But you
dodgeball
could have the
on a
dance
Friday
going
night.
and the game room at the same time, so you get a little more flow.
Well, they
It
did.
used to be
We
lockdown.
did.
on
No.
it.
No. They,
No?
they,
I thought I thought they were all
Oh
like-
no, they could go game room and in the MPR, but that was part of the. It came down to a cost effective thing. We had to put quite a few staff
Yes.
Yeah.
on those dances.
And get some
The
parents.
DJ cost, now we can eliminate that with the technology that we have now.
Right.
You don't have to go out and hire a DJ anymore, and that was a big part of the cost for those dances. Quite honestly, is getting a
Well, and-
DJ and having a DJ plus staff as security at
Right.
those dances. So they became cost prohibitive. Let's
Well,
say.
I also think that it's again come back to my usual deal, which is not everything's about cost recovery. And how well do we serve this particular group who is a part of our community, and what are we spending to serve them, and how are we doing it? And from my perspective, just looking at this bigger picture, I don't always feel like we're serving this group that well, or providing them with as much as I think we should be providing them with.
Worth
So
$300.
if you're looking at it from that perspective, I think you start to spread it out and figure out how to do it. I'm not saying we want to go in the hole or that we should be spending a
No,
lot of money,
yeah.
but I don't, it shouldn't,
I
I mean,
agree.
we have to figure out how to do it. And I do think that there's an investment period. I think that, I mean, that we're totally off topic. We can come to this,
No,
let's
it's all right.
table
I-
it and go back,
It's
but
fine.
Recreation, well, this is the recreation.
You know, one of the obvious things, and I know this is a pretty obvious statement at this
Glad we're
point,
talking
is
about
I think we need to engage that group and hear
Go to
from them.
Matilda,
and
to the PE teachers and engage the
you
kids
know,
there, yeah.
What do you guys and gals want to see? What would you come to? What
though
what
they're
are you
not the
interested
easiest
in?
group to engage.
No, they're not.
Sometimes you just got to put it out there and
Yeah.
try.
And they will
Right.
come. Because I think having.
But I
just-
agree with you.
Yeah, this community, having something for that age group on a Friday night would be.
It's an
there's-
investment.
There's really
Maybe it's,
nothing.
you know, maybe that's a social media thing that we might be able to get a little, you know,
But you're right, they have
Out of
leadership
that.
classes at Matilda. They have a leadership class. We should be engaging it, you know, with the
thought-
school and those kids.
I thought we asked staff to do that at one point, to get out and
I
start.
think it was a while ago.
Was it?
probably
Yes,
did.
I have memories of that.
Well, I think we,
I think you're
To be
right.
honest with you, you probably did, and we
Yeah.
probably didn't get to it, so.
I just think we look at, you know, I don't want us to look at it, we're an 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Right.
We're an evening time too, and I think the staff have to understand that too.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, yeah, we respect that, of
Yeah.
course, and we are reaching out with our movie
Yeah,
nights.
no.
Yeah.
And I think we,
I'm sure
But
we're
I
not
think
gonna
the
get too many middle school kids at our bingo nights, but.
Yeah.
But we are trying to expand,
Get some
be
good prizes, you know.
creative,
Yep.
get some different activities going there. But you're right, the underserved population, if you will, are those middle school age kids.
Yeah.
And
I'd say
they're
high
a
school,
tough
too.
nut to crack
They
as far
are.
as getting them
Yeah.
over and doing those sorts of things.
it's not going to happen
Um,
quickly.
No.
It'll take some time.
Would they
Yeah,
be,
trying
would,
some new stuff.
again, not the time, but, you know, do you think they would be interested in something like a laser tag type thing, where you had that type of activity
Oh,
going
I
on?
definitely think some of them would.
Paintball.
No, I didn't say paintball.
No paintball. No
I didn't s-
projectiles.
no.
No
Paintball?
projectiles.
Get them there,
That
get
sounds
paintball.
good.
Yes, but no projectiles.
It goes along with it.
Laser tag is a
There's
big
nothing
thing.
wrong with paintball.
And I
Yeah.
think laser tag would be something that they would.
Anyways, I'm
engage
just
in.
You're right, and there are companies that come out and do various different activities that are like laser tag or other things that. Okay.
Well, you get it.
but
You know
further,
what I'm saying.
but beyond that, what that particular population and demographic, we're doing quite well, I have to say, on all the other classes and the other
Okay.
offerings, and our parents are pretty pleased for the size of town that we have
Oh,
and the
yeah.
number of activities that we have available. I say we're doing
We're always
quite a
striving to
good
do better.
job. Yes, but always striving
You
to
are
do
doing a
better
good
and add new things, but, in the, well, don't have to
I-
defend
well-
the department. In the department's defense, we do our best to try to get feedback from the community. What do they want? What are their interests? And then move forward and offer it.
Absolutely. I think, though, that the problem with an underserved population,
Yes.
you don't have them to get feedback from. Just to be
Right.
totally clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we do really well with who we do really well with, and
Mm-hmm.
I think we do solicit feedback, and we're very open to it. I think the department's great about that. But I think the thing everyone always has to be keeping the eye on with all these programs or anywhere where you're serving a community is who are you not serving?
Right.
Because they're not going to talk to you. And so, I think we're doing very well, but we just,
there's pockets of them
Yep.
in parts of our program, whether
Like
it's
tennis.
tennis
Yeah.
or well, not
that's it.
CrossFit, but our weight room or other gymnastics. They're there, but not in the numbers maybe we'd like
Right.
to see. I
Or some of the
respect
kids we
that and
wanna reach.
understand it, but they are there.
Yeah,
in
at least they're
in-
there, you know, we
in
just
part-
need to
in
build.
part.
more, yeah.
And I
Our
like
youth
the,
basketball league. I mean, we have
Yeah.
the middle school division. They're there. I mean, we're serving that.
We have them in sports. We
Yeah, I
have
think
the
we're talking
sports
about the
kids.
non.
We have
And
them in
that's, we
sports.
have sports
Yeah.
kids, and we do well at that, and that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, that
Yeah,
was a
nothing-
total.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're doing
No,
incredible
it's fine.
job.
Yes.
Yeah. And but nothing more on the activity front. We're just
It's good.
plugging away.
How's the website going? Can you see all your hits on there?
Yeah, seems to be getting pretty good response from people.
I was just curious how your website was.
Yeah, seems to be getting good response from people, getting calls from people with a lot of questions, and it's that time of year where we have a lot of information out there, so it's hard to tell if it's the website or other things, but seems to be good, keeping it up to date and constantly thinking of new ways that we can use it and new
That's
things that we can
wonderful.
be posting on there, which is exciting. So
And you said it was WordPress, right?
it is, yeah.
Cool, because you can go in and see the stats and how many times people are looking at it per day, and
I don't think I'm set up with that yet, but James and I have talked about that, how we're gonna,
The
it'll be
metrics.
nice to see, like, okay, so this came out, so 2 days later,
Yeah,
you know
well,
what I mean?
did
So
you
you
get a
can
bump?
gauge,
Yeah.
like, when to post stuff. And
yeah, and Facebook does that as well, which the insights, we have been able to do that, so.
And I noticed we were up to 550 on our.
Nice.
It just keeps climbing on the
What's
Facebook.
your goal?
so.
1,000? Come on.
Yeah, 1,000. We're
Let's-
gonna have
let's
some
get
sort
a
of.
goal
we're
for you.
gonna have
We're just
some
gonna
sort
keep-
of party.
What's our
Party of
population in
1,000? Okay.
Ojai? That's
Yeah.
our goal, so. There you go.
There you go. I like that. I like how you
Didn't
think.
Steve say he was taking everybody to the Sportsman or something if we got up to 1,000, wasn't
I
that?
thought it was 550. 550.
Chuck E. Cheese.
I think it was,
Yeah.
I said if you got the
They serve
whole
beer.
town, that's what I said.
Okay.
There you go.
Thanks, Allison.
Considering I don't have one.
Okay.
Trouble.
I know.
Okay,
you're
Vice Chair Rylander,
Okay,
that's all I have.
I'll bring it back here. Sorry.
Okay.
Let's see. So let's move on to commissioner reports and comments. So have any of you done any of
I don't have
your
anything.
On facilities?
Yeah.
Actually, I did, but I think I would rather just maybe send Sophocles a list of
A
the
note.
items and
Okay.
stuff, and Greg. I was out looking at some things tonight and everything, and just things we probably need to address so it doesn't look like an eyesore.
Okay.
Yeah,
we Great.
Yeah.
We appreciate that feedback very much.
And you went out and thank you.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, you did the playground. That was a committee.
Yeah, we've had playground and skate park, and it's been
Yeah.
pretty busy
Yeah,
lately,
we've
but.
been. And I haven't been to the office yet. I tried that, but I'll make an appointment to come.
Actually, you were there. It's
Yeah.
just, again, I
When I
think
come
the
when it's
best,
busy, though.
I think the best time to come is on any afternoon, weekday afternoon. Well, maybe not Friday, Monday through Thursday. Come any weekday afternoon and you will see plenty of action, and you'll get to see kind of, again, the game room. The kids are out of school, people are using the game room, and it's especially, like I said, more heavily used now because of the basketball program, and
I
people
noticed that
get to
when we were
hang
having
out
a
there
meeting,
either
yeah.
while they're waiting before their practice, or parents with the siblings that are in there playing in
nice.
there, so.
I
It
did
has
see when we had the meeting, it was packed in there. And I always love going there and seeing just the
Activity.
kids and they're all having a good
Yeah.
time, and
I
parents.
do have a
and-
question for Steve. Steve, have you heard any more on the bike park?
We are meeting with them next Tuesday to get an update and talk a little bit further with them. Talk a little bit more about the engagement and see where they're at, so.
Yeah, I know they're working on it. I've talked to them.
Okay, good.
I don't think they're ready to come to present anything yet, so.
I don't know, we'll find out more when we
Yeah.
meet with them next week, but, and I'd be happy to update the commission at the next meeting.
Wayne, anything?
Nope.
Brian?
No.
Okay. City Council Liaison, Mayor Laura, please join us.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Commissioners and staff. Really exciting meeting. I was so enthralled in all the items with the last part with the winter activities, and also with the parks, and it just sounds like we need a new recreation facility so we could accommodate more. Is that what I'm hearing?
Of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of a hidden agenda, but no, it would be great
So
to.
happy that you were on the commission.
Well, yeah, and I'm happy that I served that year and a half too. So I learned a lot, so to say the least. But just great meeting overall. I'm sitting in for Paul Blatz, our council member Blatz, and just a couple updates on what's going on in the city. We're going to have a telecommunication facility workshop next Tuesday at 6 p.m. So if any of you are interested in that. And then we're also going to have our ratification of the new commissioner at the next city council, and also the second reading on the lighting for the skate park. it just seems that there's a lot. We're hiring a code compliance officer. We direct the staff that we wanted a code officer, but more start with education, the community. I think one of the things that I like to do is organize things. So I think one of the first things that we're going to be talking about in the city council is goals and visions. And every commission that we have here is vital. And I have reached out to staff and asked for not only projects that each commissioner is working on, but also if you guys have any comments. I'm trying to be very ambitious and touch on the whole structure of our government system and just do a whole overview. And I'm really pushing us to be really organized so that we could follow through with whatever it is that we're doing. It doesn't matter with the departments, it doesn't matter with commissions, with the different agencies. I really want to get the whole picture of what we're doing and combine it. So I'm open to feedback. The whole thing about having to do that community building with the park, it's kind of like that. Have community input, commissioners input, staff input. I really want to make sure that we make it easy on ourselves. I know it's a lot of work up front, but I think at the end result would be a lot of collaboration, a lot of working together, and that's what I really am striving for with this whole goal-setting visions that I decided to put on the agenda. And I am facilitating it. I'm running a PowerPoint. I don't know if it's going to be as fun as Greg's with all the pictures and stuff. It might be a little bit more drier, but I think it's really important for us to do and really tackle some serious issues. And the facilities is definitely, capital improvement is definitely in there. So any questions from commissioners or staff?
So is that part of your next general meeting?
Yes, I'm putting it on the agenda. So
Oh, I
Yeah.
just wanted, Mayor, Laura, I just wanted to add, so that telecommunications meeting that you talked about on the beginning, it's, next, it's the
It's the
20th.
It's a week from
oh,
Tuesday.
sorry,
from
not next,
Tuesday.
a week from Tuesday.
And it
yeah.
will be at Sarasota Park,
Oh,
the
in the-
NPR
Boyd
at 6
Center.
PM. So just for the public's benefit to just mention the time and the place.
And I just have one question. I was curious if the request for a proposal for the master plan for Sarasota has come to the city council or will be on the agenda?
I was going to address that next. It's
Okay.
coming up on the 27th this
Okay,
month.
cool.
27th, okay.
And then I was just going to say that it wasn't the lights, the skate park, it was the confiscation.
Oh, was it?
ordinance. Yeah. We're done with the lights.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, just want to double check that. Yes,
Thank
skate
you.
park ordinance. You're absolutely right. Thank
I'm
you
like,
for
no,
that
no more
correction.
meetings on the lights.
That's already done.
I'm just, you made me
Well,
hard.
well, thank you guys so much for all your hard work. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Steve, I got a quick question. Are we, or is the city staff looking at the purchase or the fees that are charged to the public or whenever they come in for building fees and stuff for the recreational part?
The recreation component has been on hold,
Okay.
and that will be studied at some point. I don't know, I don't think we have that on the calendar yet, but that will definitely come to the commission at some point for input and discussion. But we haven't even worked on that at the staff level yet, so I think that's out there a bit off for now. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention in terms of upcoming agenda items that may be of interest to the commission, and we already covered several already in the evening, so I won't mention those again. But there's going to be a discussion at the January 13th meeting about the commission attendance and the policy of the council on the attendance of commissioners. So just to let you know that will be up for discussion next Tuesday. And that was it. Everything else we've mentioned. And just a bit down the road, but just to remind the commissioners that we do have a joint meeting with the city council, and that'll be in August, so we go a ways off for that. So that would be the the second Tuesday in August would be that joint meeting with
Can
the
I-
city council.
I see a question about the commission attendance. Like I was there last time and spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be something that we as a commission would, maybe you go one time and like that we would split up, or is that, how
Are
are
you talking
they-
about the reports to council?
Yeah.
This is different.
That,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
This is
that,
about actually missing
that,
your
that-
meetings and what
Oh,
happens if you
okay,
miss meetings.
okay. I thought this was
Yeah.
more speaking and
that
joining.
responsibility falls to the chair or the acting chair, so,
Okay.
You did good.
right.
I'll
so-
be there next time.
Perfect,
I'll be there Tuesday.
great.
Okay. I didn't know if that was something that the
No, this
Commission
is about,
wanted to share.
it's written in that you missed so many
Oh,
and you're,
okay.
yeah.
I remember that with the council as well. That was like so, okay.
That's
So
all I
I think
have.
that's,
We're true.
anything else? Okay, then I think we'll adjourn the meeting and thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you. Let me shut it off in the back. There you go. Congratulations.
Looks good. I like what you guys did with the advertisements.
Yeah,